I'm Katie Bleekman. I am an online fitness coach and I help female equestrians get themselves fitter, get themselves stronger and really understand how to train their bodies off horse so that they can get better results in the saddle. Most people, and I'll be brutally honest about this, they get into fitness because they don't feel good. It's just a bit of a shame that it takes us to get to that point to actually start, but I just think it's really important because as much as, yes, we're all riders, you're right, it sounds really corny, but you don't have anything if you don't have your health. I've never met a rider who doesn't work hard. I've had riders say to me oh, I'm just lazy. And they're not lazy. They're either completely overwhelmed, completely burnt out, or they just don't have a clue where to start. Trying to do everything in one approach, it's not a bad thing, but it's not sustainable in the long run and less is always going to be more.
Katie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Really, really lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are and what you do in the equestrian industry, can you give us a bit of a background of what you do and obviously your full name as well so people can find you?
Yeah, so I'm Katie Bleekman. I am an online fitness coach and I help female equestrians get themselves fitter, get themselves stronger and really understand how to train their bodies off horse so that they can get better results in the saddle. I help a whole host of women, so people that ride purely for leisure and for fun as more of a hobby. I help event riders, show jumpers, a huge different collection of people. At the minute, I've got a couple of riders who are full-time riders, so a dressage rider, an event rider who actually went to Tokyo. So it's a big wide pool of female athletes, if you like. And yeah, I run Event Rider Fitness. That is my business that I started 6 years ago now. So in terms of me, I've always been very horsey. I've always been very sporty. So my mum was a professional event rider herself. So back in the day of Lucinda Green, people like that, she was kind of at the top of her game, did things like Worlds, Europeans, never did Olympics, but I don't know how many badminton she's done. The Armada dishes are up on the side there, but I think 20 maybe, I don't know, I won't say the wrong number. So yeah, we were kind of born into a very, very horsey family. My dad's from Holland and grew up on a stud farm, so breeding show jumping horses mainly, bit of dressage horses, and I've got two sisters and we were kind of just born into a horsey life right from the off. So yeah, horses have always been there. And then I've just always been really into my sports, I guess, growing up on a farm, you're always outside doing bits and pieces. And that kind of, developed into school and things like that. So I've kind of taken all of that and now I combine the two and I help, female equestrians just to figure out how to keep themselves fit, strong, happy, a little bit healthier as well so that they can make the most out of their horses and what they're doing.
Wow, that was amazing. What a history. Well, where do we even start? I suppose we'll start in. So, you said you've got two sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they both ride as well, or is it just yourself?
Yeah, so we've all kind of phased out a little bit. I'm the middle one. I've got a sister who is a year and 1 month older than me, so she's called Alfie. She still events now, so she's currently got one horse competing at 4-star level, I think it is. She events other horses, show jumps quite a lot. We breed our own here, so she does a lot of the younger horses as well, producing and bringing them on. And then I have a younger sister who's known as Nui. She used to event a lot. And stopped eventing a few years back, so she now show jumps quite a lot. She also actually works at Bicton Arena, which is one of the big equestrian venues in the southwest, so she's one of their site team. But yeah, she's got a couple of show jumping horses of her own, and together they run the yard. I was very adamant from a young age that I didn't really want to go into a family business. I would rather just do my own thing, stay in my own lane. And I always knew deep down I never wanted to do the horses. It sounds weird to say, I didn't want to do the horses in order that you had to do them to survive, if you know what I mean. I'd rather do the horses on my terms, be able to have fun with them, whether it's competing or doing what you enjoy, not having to do it for a living. So yeah, I've always kind of done my own thing, but we're all somehow still connected with the horses.
Amazing. No, I love that. I love the horses for me. I mean, my kids, well, my daughter now rides. My son's having a bit of a break from it. But I think it does so much for for kids. I think it teaches them so much. It teaches them resilience, the physical side of it, the social side of it. I mean, I've said it multiple times on here. I think horses are fantastic for kids, and it's so lovely to see as well that you've all carried that some form of horse connection into your adult life as well. That's really, really cool. But yeah, I was going to say, I bet you guys were about everywhere when you were younger. I bet your mum and dad were going everywhere with you.
Yeah, so Dad got away quite free. He a lot of people always say, like, is your dad still around? Because he doesn't often feature at like a competition or a show. He might make a rare appearance, but obviously we have a whole yard of horses at home, so he's often busy here. But to be fair, yeah, mum and dad, but mum mainly did a lot with us. So when we were younger, we all three of us went through the pony circuit, so eventing. We all went to the Europeans with our respective ponies. I actually had my own pony that Mum and I bought together when I was 11, I think. Well, Mum and Dad obviously paid for her, but we found her. And Dad was furious because he got dropped off here, and she was a 4-year-old coloured mare. I was 11, and I'd never, we'd done one self-produced pony, Mum and I. We'd bought like a cheap pony from a friend and done it quite well and brought him on. But I mean, I wasn't very experienced with a 4-year-old. And Dad, being Dutch, they're not overly big fans of the old colour pony. So he was pretty pissed off. And it was she wasn't expensive, but she was about £3,000. So that would have been I don't know, how old am I now? 32. So yeah, however many years ago, 20 years ago. And that was our family holiday that year. We didn't go on a family holiday after that pony got bought. But that Yeah, that pony took me to my first ever Pony European. She took my younger sister to 2 Pony Europeans, and between the two of us, she won 3 European medals. And I think I'm right in saying she was top 10 at every European. She's the most incredible pony, and actually, we went on a little trip last year to go and see her, and she's landed in a world of her own, coming over from Ireland, just a colour pony that had done nothing. She actually is now with JP Sheffield, who events. His daughter now has her as her schoolmaster. And we went and saw her last year, and it was a bit of a flip because our yard is definitely not as smart as JP's, and she was there in her American barn, happy as Larry. But it was really cool to see her. Yeah, that pony did an awful lot for me, for my sister, for our family, and you kind of remember those ones, don't you?
Yeah, you always remember your first, not your third, but the ones that always stick out to you. But mind you always remember your first as well. I mean, my daughter, she still remembers her first ever pony. It was a Shetland one called Susie. It was a little bugger. It chucked her off everywhere, and she broke her arm really badly actually during COVID. She just landed badly off this little Shetland. And yeah, it was really bad. But yeah, my wife is Dutch, so I totally get the Dutch, sort of personality. Very, very straight and to the point, and they like what they like, and they don't like what they don't like.
A lot of people would probably.
So I totally get that. Sorry, what was that one? So you cut out then.
I said a lot of people would probably call it rude, but I agree. I think it's just direct and to the point, and I think that's the best way to be.
Oh yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, when Shan came over here, because obviously she's very direct, she'll just say how it is. But the British, we like to, pussyfoot around it, and then we go around, beat around the bush a little bit. But then I suppose their way is just rip off the band-aid and it's done, which could be helpful in its own way, I suppose. You obviously you've had you've never really been out of the horsey game. You've been in it your whole life essentially. So when was there a moment where you went, okay, I'm going to go into physical fitness, and then how did you then marry that with the equestrian side of it as well, or did it happen at once? Did it happen separately? Take us through that.
So yeah, I have always been involved with horses, but when I was, I think about 18, I decided, I stayed at school, got my A-levels. I was very adamant that I wanted to do that. And again, that's not really something that in my family, we did. My sisters left school at 16 and went straight into horses, but I always wanted to have something more than anything as a fall back on. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do horses full time. And I kind of got to the point when I think I was 18 or 19, when I'd been through the pony circuits. I'd done 3 years with the horses, had a couple of younger ones, had a slightly older horse competing at intermediate 3-star level. And I remember going around a EU 100 on one of the young ones, and it wasn't anything to do with the horse. And I remember going cross country and thinking, I'm not enjoying this. It just like, I wasn't nervous, I wasn't scared, it wasn't anything like that. I just didn't enjoy it anymore. And I remember like going home that night, I didn't say anything. And I kind of thought in the back of my head, I've like had it. I'm over it a little bit. So I actually, like gave up that year. My younger sister got the horse I had, and he was really cool. And that might be a little bit of a regret of mine because he was such a cool horse. But I actually ended up moving to Newmarket, so still relatively horsey. But I went and got an office job, and I kind of like did my own thing for 3-4 years. And that was actually selling like equestrian clothing, so still equestrian related. So we got to still go to like, the trade shows, Badminton Burley, all that stuff. So I never fully got out of horses, but it was much more like sales and marketing. And then naturally I moved on to another job, again, still like horse brand, but it was e-commerce, and I was there for 6 months and I hated it. Like I absolutely hated it. The people were lovely. The business was great. I just hated sitting on a computer all day, like building websites. It's not something I want to do. Like I build my own now, but I wouldn't do it as a career. And I remember ringing mum and dad. They're like, we're in Devon, so they were about 4 or 5 hours away, and saying like, I really don't want to do it anymore, but I don't know what to do. Like I live here, I'd have to come home. I've only been here 6 months. I feel really guilty. I feel like I should stay. And I think it was dad that said, like, if you're really not enjoying it, just, you've done 4 years up there. It doesn't matter that it's 6 months in a job. And I kind of had in my head, I think I was like 21, 22. Oh my God, 6 months. Like, I'll never get employed again if I leave. And I just kind of, I guess, saw the bigger picture. And I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. So I left. I decided to leave Newmarket and move back to Devon. And I kind of limboed around for like 6 weeks. It was just before Christmas. Actually went back to riding for a local point-to-point trainer in the mornings, doing the horses here in the afternoons while I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And then I had a random call from somebody who was like, you've got your HTV, do you want to come to Spain? We need someone to drive a lorry and groom. And I was like, yeah, okay, go with the show jumpers. That sounds like fun for the next few weeks. And that turned into freelance grooming for the next 3 years. So I loved that. And I really, really enjoyed it. Did a bit of show jumping, a bit of eventing, bit of yard cover as well. And I loved it. Like the traveling, I loved driving the lorries. Like it was good fun. But again, like deep down, I knew that wasn't going to be like a long-term career. And it actually the fitness thing came out of like a bit of a random place. Like, when we were in Barocca in Portugal, I was training for a marathon. I can't remember what marathon, Manchester. So like I was trying to, after we finished for the day, go and run somehow, like your 20-mile run or whatever. And somebody said to me, and they were like, have you ever thought about doing fitness for work? Because like obviously you really enjoy it and you're really into it, but like wouldn't that be quite cool to be a PT? And I was like, oh, I guess I haven't really thought about it, but I suppose. And then that kind of planted a seed. The more I thought about it, I was like, it would be quite cool actually to like, go and stand in the gym, tell people what to do, and just be in a gym, have fun, like, coaching sessions. Like to me, that sounded awesome as a job. I didn't really see it as work. So that was kind of the start of it. And I decided to get my PT qualifications. And I did all of like the theory stuff, self-study. So I did it alongside grooming. It took me longer than it would have if I'd gone and like, done an intense course, but I did it in about a year. So I did it alongside the grooming. And then slowly started, when I qualified, started picking up work in local gyms. So I started in a women's only like HIIT centre in Swindon. Then I found a really, really good gym that sadly didn't make it through the other side of COVID, but it was small group training. So that was near Cirencester. And yeah, I started relatively part-time, actually started, and then I was like, can I please have a month off? Because I'm going to the Asian Games to groom in Jakarta. And luckily they were really sound and they were like, yeah, awesome, of course. And then I think it was then that the owner was like, we could do with somebody giving a few more hours. Like, would you consider when you come back going full time? And it was the end of the season. Like, naturally, I was kind of starting to make that progression. So I started there. And that was kind of it, really. Did 2 years of in-person coaching. So one-to-one, small group, a whole host of different clients. Like, it was a really, really nice gym. And then whilst I was there, I said to the business owner, like, are we allowed to, like advertise ourselves? Can I do my own thing on the side? And he was like, yeah, of course. Like, if it brings more business to the gym, you guys can do what you want. And there was quite a different variety of us. I was probably the youngest, like nobody else was really horsey. And I said to him, like, this is what I want to do. I want to try and get some riders in the gym. And obviously Cirencester is quite a polo heavy area. So I got a few polo riders in, a couple of event riders. And it kind of slowly started from there. And then COVID was really the turning point. When COVID happened, I wasn't sure what to do. So yeah, at that stage I was living like near Swindon, and my housemate at the time, we had a very small house. I lived with her in her house, and she was like, like, what are you going to do? Because you can't really be doing like burpees in the living room on Zoom when I'm trying to like run a finance meeting. You work for the NHS. And I was like, yeah, no, I get that. So I actually came home and obviously, everything was shut, wasn't it? So it didn't matter that I wasn't there. And quite quickly, like you could see things going downhill, like with the gym. Some people just didn't feel comfortable doing sessions on Zoom. Some people just decided to stop, some stayed. Like it was just a bit of an odd time. And straight away I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like in a year's time. So I just started my own thing. And I think you hear it quite a lot. Like it's something that we talk about quite a lot with like other fitness coaches running online businesses. Like you'll hear people say, oh, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to start an app. I don't know how to do this. I didn't have a clue. And I had always had it in the back of my head. I wanted to do that. But COVID kind of like forced it. So yeah, like that's kind of been my progression into coaching and fitness. And yeah, just like helping riders has always just been something I want to do because it allows me to actually like, coach a client that I get inside out and also combine two passions that I love that I know so many other people do and really like help them to get a little bit more out of it by getting themselves into a better place.
Wow. Yeah. When you were just going back to when you said you were obviously going through the qualification side of it and learning about it, did you go when you were going through like, I don't know, the exercises or different modules in the course, did you go, oh, that'd be really, really handy for horse riders? Did it stick out to you straight away, like some of the stuff that you think, oh, that'd be really helpful for, I don't know, polo riders or dressage riders or cross-country riders?
Probably not as such because all of the theory side of it is quite like basic. Like when it comes to like the PT and the, I can't remember what they call your level 2. You have to be a level 2, I think, a gym instructor before you can be level 3. It's relatively basic, like cardiovascular and strength science behind it. Like it's kind of biology. But then when you actually do the physical in person, like again, it is quite basic. Like this is something that's talked about again a lot in the fitness industry. The general like qualification to get in, it's quite generic and it's relatively low level. I don't really want to say that because I don't want someone to listen and be like, oh God, like they don't know what they're doing. But that's why then I've gone on and done so many other courses. Like I've done loads and loads and loads of extra CPDs, different courses, different in-person things. Yeah, like you don't have heaps of variety. It's kind of like learn how to do the basic movements, like, learn how to take a client through it safely. But I guess the thing that I was probably not super confident on when I started that was the strength training side of things. So like for your actual exam in person, I actually used my ex-boyfriend at the time, and you have to take a person in and like, walk them through the gym. Like the first exam was like, right, it's all on machines or you can put them in bodyweight position, but you have to like show them how to use the machine, make sure they're using it correctly, all of that. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't really want to use a machine because, it worries me a bit and I was a bit unconfident with them. Same thing with like getting under a bar and doing a barbell bench. I was like, oh God, I don't want to do that. So that actually kind of when you like, the only way you're going to do it and pass is if you push yourself to do it and then obviously you feel what it's like and then you coach somebody else through it. So that kind of was a good reminder and a good like start point to me of like actually like this is something that we need to help riders with because I kind of semi knew what I was doing. And this was like 8-9 years ago when I was at the very, very start. But I was still so unconfident in a gym. So I think more than anything like specific coming through for the sport, it was just that like kind of highlight of I think we need to like do something as a collective to get riders more comfortable in that setting and actually know what to do because I think that's a massive issue. Like riders will go into the gym and I hear this all the time and they'll be like, oh, I was there for an hour, and I'll be like, what do you do? Oh, I went on the bike and I went on the treadmill. And I was like, so you didn't use any other kit? Oh, well, I don't really know what to do, or I don't feel confident. And that's like a massive problem because, we've all been there. But until you actually know like what to do and how to use it and how to keep yourself safe, you're not going to like push yourself to use the other bits of kit that actually give you way more progress than just running on a treadmill for half an hour will.
Definitely. I think you're right in that is that, if you go to the gym and people probably don't know I suppose people go to the gym for two reasons. One, to get better at what they're doing, the sport, I assume. And then the second one is obviously the physical appearance of how you look. Now, if some, I don't know, for me, for example, when I was younger, I really wanted really buffed out shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how to get the buffed out shoulders, I knew I wanted that. But then because I was probably 18, whatever it was, I was a bit too nervous to ask the other blokes in there or research it, because again, the internet is just full of all these random exercises that they tell you, and it's like, well, okay, well, which one do we need to choose? When you are coaching riders, I'm not going to ask you to do the specific exercises, but is there any sort of like areas that you concentrate on more? Like, is it the core, or is it just like an overall sort of strength physical program that you put them through?
So I think you said one thing there that like we all do, and actually I caught myself at the weekend doing this in the gym. So I'm working on my pull-ups at the moment, and I'm not very good at pull-ups. And I went straight to do a pull-up, and then I was like, hang on a minute, actually, I'm trying to get better at this thing. So you need to break it down, and you need to start with the basic things. But whatever your goal is, whether it's buffing out your shoulders, getting a pull-up, improving your, let's say, left leg strength, because you're collapsing when you're riding into your right hip. Whatever it is, it's not just one exercise. It's a bit the same as like, losing weight. Like I know I used to do that, like Google, like how do you lose weight? What's the magic thing? It's not one thing, it's a combination. I think the more people understand that, the better, because when you stop looking for that one thing, that's actually when you're then going to start to progress. But in terms of like how I would train a rider, or like what kind of like fundamentals go in the program. So the majority of my riders I work with on a completely bespoke platform. So I have other programs, so not everything is like completely personalized to that rider physically. But for my like top tier program, every rider goes through a movement screen. So I watch them doing a variety of exercises, about 10 different movements off horse, all body weight. It's just what I would deem as quite like basic exercises. So single leg work, can you move your hips? Can you get down into a low squat? What's your core stability like? Upper body strength. And I'm more looking at how people move, like how can they control their bodies, and also like, what areas are they struggling? Where aren't they very mobile? Where are they really lacking stability, or whatever it might be? And typically hip mobility, always going to be one. So that's always something to work on straight from the off. And like with strength training, and whether you train at home or in the gym, it doesn't matter, but you're not going to get the full benefit out of the exercises unless you can move properly. So that's a massive part of like the strength side of things, and in fitness, because you have to do it properly. But like it's a real pet peeve of mine, I hate it, like watching a PT coach client in the gym and they let them like load up the barbell with like 100 kilos and they're back squatting, they're like, yeah, oh, you're smashing it, and then you watch the video and they're like not even doing half reps. That to me is just like that's building people's ego without actually helping them to get better, if you know what I mean. Because at some point, if you do that, you're going to get to like, say like 120 kilos and you'll get stuck. You'll find you're not progressing. And then you're going to be like, what? I don't understand what's happened here. But you kind of skip the fundamentals, and mobility is like the gateway to everything. Because if you're immobile in, one place, like classic hips, your lower back will try and, create movement that it shouldn't, because you're lacking that movement in your hips. Or again, riders really, really stiff through their back, so their thoracic area. So mobility would always kind of be my first point of call. A lot of lower body strength. So, whether that's squatting, whether it's single leg work, hip hinging, which can be a bit of a painful exercise to teach riders. For some people, 99% of the population can squat really well, but when you ask them to push their hips back, they struggle with that. So that's a bit of a tricky one. And then, core strength. Like, obviously, core strength is a massive part of rider fitness. But again, like trying to get away from this thinking of, oh, I'll just do sit-ups all the time. It's like looking at what your core actually does in the saddle. Like, your core is there to support the spine. That's its job. So you need to be training all of the muscles around the spine, around the hips, back, front, all of it. So it's making sure you're looking at all angles rather than just trying to find like one particular exercise.
Yeah, but you've just tried to explain, you've explained it very well, but it's one of them, I think, because you understand it and know about it. I think for anybody who doesn't know about it, it's just an absolute minefield. It's like you said, where do I start? Do I do with my legs? Do I do with my core? Do I do with my back? Do I have to do my right leg more than my left because I've fallen on that side? Like, it's just an absolute minefield. Do you get any? Have you ever had riders send you a video of them riding, and then you've been able to go, okay, we need to work on, they're not quite symmetrical or whatever it is, and we have to work on one side more than the other? Is that a thing?
Yeah, Yeah. So like the movement assessment off horse that I take people through, they video themselves doing it and then they upload the videos to the app and I watch it back through. And what I always like to do is I watch it once, like all the way through. I don't take notes, just like watch them do all their movements. And then I slow everything down to half speed. I don't actually tell most of them that I do this, but I slow it down to half speed. Because even for the riders, like I have had somebody, she's just finishing her first phase of the program, her first 3 months. And I watched it at first and I was like, God, she moves really well. Like this is going to be quite hard because I can't really like, pinpoint anything that like drastically needs improving. And that's always a fun client to work with because you can do some like really, challenging exercises and some complex stuff. But obviously I want her to feel a difference by the end. And then actually when we slowed it right down, you could see like tiny little things, like she collapsed a little bit into the left hip in the bottom of the squat. It's minimal, but it's there. And actually, like she was saying to me yesterday, because she's just finished her 12 weeks, so we're doing a bit of a reflection, that like now she can actually feel that. Like when she drops her left hip, she can feel it. And she was saying to me, like, my head goes straight to, even when I'm riding, hang on a minute, what would I do in the gym? Oh yeah, I'd engage my glute, I'd lift my foot up, I'd correct myself, I'd use my core. So it transfers straight back into, what you're doing in the gym, straight back into the horses. So I think making sure that things are specific is important. But yeah, what you said there is everything being a bit of a minefield. That's the thing. And you're right, probably because I do it day in, day out. And I've done it for a long time. Like all of these exercises make sense to me, but I think it's just making sure you basically cover all bases but start at a level that's appropriate for you. So like keep it simple. Like a workout can entail one core exercise, one lower body exercise, one single leg exercise and one upper body exercise, and you're there. Like if you did that 2-3 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks, you'll see improvement. So I think it's keeping things simple, because when you start, you're right, it does feel like a complete minefield for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no, it does. And for me, I still struggle with it now. And I mean, I don't do lots. I do weights and twice a week or whatever it is, and I do cardio the 3 times a week. But what I suppose we're going on to that is you've just mentioned then is the frequency. Like how often should people be working out, and especially riders? Because it's like my wife, she was away over the weekend and I did the yard duties and I was knackered, even though like I can run 6 kilometers no problem. I was absolutely pooped and I couldn't really, lift my shoulders up the next day because of the thing. And I suppose it is a fitness thing, but how where do you sort of draw the line of, okay, the mucking out and the riding is your exercise, but also you need to go and do X, Y, Z extra to improve this?
Yeah. So, that's a good question. So obviously this is where a lot of riders kind of fall into the trap. And I hate to say it, but quite a lot of the not older generation. I actually train quite a lot of ladies that are in their 50s to mid 60s. Like my oldest client currently is 68 and she's incredibly active. Like they have cattle on the farm, they have 3 horses. She's constantly they're calving at the minute, they do it all themselves. She's constantly on the yard doing things, farm chores. She works full time still, and to be honest, if I did everything she did, I'd probably be knackered at the end of the day as well. So there's a big element of that is obviously your body gets used to the activity you do, don't you? Like whenever you do something new, it's always going to be hard to get going. But that yard work and day to day, that's activity. It's not exercise. You can say it's exercise, and of course it's cardiovascular exercise. Like when you're mucking out, of course, your heart rate's up if you're catching one of them from the field, particularly at this time of the year when the fields are wet and you're slogging up and down the hills. Yes, of course it's fitness, absolutely. But there's a difference between being fit for the yard work and being fit enough for day-to-day life versus actually being fit for the specific sport you're trying to do. And if you're trying to improve your riding, whether that is if you're listening and you compete in eventing or show jumping, and maybe you're trying to step up to, I don't know, jumping a 120, or you're looking to step up to intermediate, obviously you're competing at a high level, you need to start looking at those little things, and the specificity, can never get that word out, really, really does matter. But then even saying that, if you're somebody that just enjoys hacking 3 times a week and you do a fun ride a couple of times a month, you still need a different level of endurance, balance, stamina than the endurance and stamina that you need to muck out for and, fill the water bucket. So I think it's important to remember that it's not specific training. Training is called training for a reason. I'm not giving workouts for horse riders. I hate the word workout because a workout in my head is where you go and jump around for half an hour, you get sweaty, you get hot, you finish, go, oh my God, I'm dead. But there was no like principle behind it. Training is like a process. Like you start somewhere, you want to get to an outcome. So we're going to take you through that process to get there. So if you think about that and then relate it back to the day-to-day stuff on the yard, it's two completely different things. So I think it's important to remember that because, yeah, like obviously like horsey people are insanely busy. Like I think if you mentioned to anyone, like yesterday somebody at the gym was like, haha, you're always late, and I was like, well, that's because I get off my horse, I run in the house, like, you know, I've literally given myself like an hour and a half to ride, muck out, do everything in the evening before I go to the gym. But there's no point in trying to explain it to the average person, is there? They're just like, oh, she's bad at time management. So we do a lot, but I think it's important to realise how much like more, if you work on your fitness, if you work on your strength, how much more that can actually give you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, when you explain it like that, that makes perfect sense. And I think if you could try and get that across to people, it's like the mucking out, whilst it is good for you and healthy and that, it's not necessarily going to improve what you want to improve on in the saddle, as it were. You'd have to do extra. But then is it not like your body only has a certain amount, like it'll have a limit, right? Like can you not overdo it? Like, for example, Shan, we have 4 horses at the moment, and she wakes up at 6, mucks out, and then she also goes and works out. She's into her skipping and she does a bit of weightlifting. But then by the weekend, she's just knackered, like flat out knackered. Like, is there a balance that you think that riders have to sort of get to where they're not overly exerting their bodies, but being consistent enough to get to where they want to be in their riding?
Yes, riders don't have balance. That's the problem. So like most people will like come in and like when I work with people, most people won't say, I feel really overwhelmed. But when you talk to people and like, I'll just listen to, you know, if someone's looking at working with me, I'll be like, just tell me a bit about yourself, what you've got going on, where you're at. And it's like, oh, well, I've got 3 kids. I'm working a part-time job. My husband works away. You know, he's always traveling. He's home on a Friday. I'm running the whole place by myself. I've got 3 horses. I've got 2 dogs. Like it's nonstop all day, every single day. But I really want to, you know, work on my fitness. I want to work on my strength, but also actually I'm knackered all the time. Like, you know, I'm not happy with my body. I feel like I'm carrying too much weight, but I don't know how to change it because I'm constantly tired. And like when I listen, I'm like, fucking hell, like no wonder you're like, you know, feeling a bit stuck. But I think we've also all been there. So I think riders are appalling at, you know, being able to say, I'm actually going to have a day off, or like, you know, I've been busy, or like, I'm not saying your wife in particular, but using her example, like if she gets to Friday and she's knackered, then like try and block out a bit of time. Okay, this isn't going to be possible for everyone. I know some people listen and be like, that's all right if, you know, you don't have kids or if you don't have this or that responsibility. But like you need to take that time for yourself to recover. Like that was something I used to struggle with. Particularly when I really started to enjoy training and I would take a rest day and I'd be like, oh, I really want to do something. I feel like itchy. I want to go to the gym or I want to go for a run. And honestly, like I probably didn't understand the principle of rest enough, but it's not just rest from training, it's rest from life. And I think like all riders need to be a bit better at accepting the fact that you can't always get everything done. Like there's obviously, you know, the jobs that we get done every day that they just have to be done, like mucking out, feeding the horses. That's something I always say, like my horse always gets exercise every single day. Like I wouldn't just say, oh, I haven't got time today, like regardless of how messy the day is, that just happens. But then we're very good at doing all of that and exactly like burning ourselves out. So yeah, I completely agree. Like a lot of riders are very, very bad at having a balance. And again, like when you start looking at working on your fitness, you can't improve your fitness. And I'm not going to encourage anyone to start training 3 times a week if you're saying like, I'm exhausted. And obviously, you know, if you're mentally tired, that's probably going to come through in your body being physically tired as well. That's where then you get things like, you know, oh, my shoulder's a bit niggly actually when I'm reaching up and hanging hay nets. Ow, my shoulder hurts. You know, injuries start coming in because the lifestyle's repetitive. Like a lot of the jobs we're doing are very repetitive, but we're not giving ourselves that rest. So I know it's hard, but I think like we're all juggling to fit everything in. But it's not about like just doing more and more all the time. And I think that's a bit of like an old mantra you need to get out of. Like, you know, when you fall off, you just get straight back on and get on with it. Like, yes, we all need to get on with it. But at the same time, you also need to sometimes acknowledge that like actually you are really busy, you've got a lot going on, and actually you might need to like take a bit of rest, or take that Friday afternoon, like an hour maybe before you go and get the kids from school, have an hour watching Netflix. Like I know it feels really like alien at first to sit on the sofa, do nothing and think like, oh my God, I'm being so lazy. But sometimes doing nothing, that's like exactly what you need. And actually, if you look at like now, like all of the kind of mindset help that's out there, psychology, a lot of it is about just like stop for a second, like give your brain and your body a chance to just like breathe, have a second. And if you're never getting that time to do that, I think you're just constantly running on that, like what I would call like the stress wheel. Like, you know, it's just everything's at 110 miles an hour. And you never really feel like you can move forwards. It just feels like, you know, you're constantly battling the day to day.
Yeah, this is it. I think, I think the majority of riders will have that. They'll have the horses, the kids, you know, family life, work, you know, God knows whatever else, you know, I'm probably missing out there. And it's like, I suppose the exercise always comes at the last moment, the last priority, I guess. But I suppose, you know, a good way to put across to people is that if you don't have your health, then everything else crumbles. Like your health is one of the main blocks, isn't it? Like if you don't have that, then the whole thing falls away. So I suppose people have got to be a little bit not selfish, but prioritize it a little bit more, and try and do something. I mean, how often for the average rider would you say they would have to, you know, be a good amount of time to go and do a session or whatever? Is it once a week? Is it twice a week? 3 times a week?
I think just like, again, like this is the difficult thing with fitness. It all depends on who the person is, your goals, everything like that. But for the like basic equestrian, let's say, you know, you're riding a few times a week, maybe you jump a little bit, you do a bit of dressage, you have some lessons, you do the odd competition. Training twice a week, that'd be a really good place to start. So doing 2 sessions a week where, you know, you're covering your strength, you're covering your mobility movement. Ideally adding in like 1 to 2 aerobic sessions as well. I'm mindful that I've talked a lot about the strength side of things. And yeah, I'm not just giving people strength workouts. We are obviously working on the fitness as well. But the strength is probably where you're lacking because you've got a certain level of fitness from the yard work. Like even though I'm saying it's not, you know, specific training, you are still going to be fit. Like if you went and walked with your friend that, you know, is a normal person and doesn't have horses and you guys went for a 4-hour hike, you'll probably find you find it easy and they struggle. So the fitness is a little bit easier for most questions because it's kind of there already. But the strength and the mobility side of things, particularly as we get older, hate to say it, but you know, our bodies do become less mobile. Our muscle mass reduces, our bone density gets lower as we get older. So protecting all of those things is important. And I just wanted to go back to what you just mentioned there about like the health thing, because I think this is where we can all go a bit wrong. And like I have had this conversation actually with a couple of my clients this week. Like we check in every week and then we have conversations at the start of the week, and that kind of guides like changes that are made for the week ahead. And one of my clients was saying to me about like riding, and she was saying like the thing she's learned through this process was that it always comes back to looking at it from like a horse point of view. So she said like it's just kind of like made me go like, oh duh, why wasn't I doing that before? But like when you produce a young horse, you look at the big picture. So like, you know, you've just bought him, he's 3, he's unbroken. Like what's the next 10 years going to look like? You're not expecting to be doing flying changes by the end of his 4-year-old year, or you're not expecting, you know, to go and win a competition in 6 months. You're realistic about the fact it's going to take a long time. And I think when it comes to us, we're not very good at being realistic, which I get. Like it's frustrating as hell if you try and do something and you're like, oh my God, that felt impossible, or like, oh God, that feels really hard. It's not fun. Like I'll just put it out there. But fitness, whatever it is, fitness, strength, you know, improving your sleep, improving your health, it takes time and it's not like a short-term fix. There was a really nice analogy that Jake Humphries, who runs what's the podcast called? I can't remember. He was the BBC presenter, kids presenter, and he runs podcasts.
Oh, is it High Performance? Is it that one?
Yeah. And he put a thing on Instagram at the weekend and he'd had a car crash. And I'd never heard of this analogy before, but he said like glass ball or a rubber ball analogy. So he'd had a car crash, like it was okay, luckily he was all right. The car wasn't very and yeah, the glass ball versus rubber ball analogy. And I Googled it because I hadn't heard of it before. And I do like a lot of mindset with my clients. I've done a lot of mindset work myself. And I really like this because the basic principle is like we've all got balls. They're all going around in the air. The majority of the balls that are flying flying around are going to be rubber balls. So obviously if they drop, they bounce back up. So it might be like, you know, work hours. It might be trying to think of the examples. It might be something like a work task. It could be a like basic things that aren't like really high priorities. So it might be like crashing your car or denting your car, things that don't really matter, but in the moment they seem big, like tidying up the tack room, like, oh my god, I've got to do that right now. And then you've got your glass balls, which are things that if you drop them, they shatter and they're very, very hard to glue back together. So things like your health, you know, relationships with people, more so like what they were talking about was like, you know, looking after your relationships with your parents, particularly if they're elderly, you know, making sure that you're spending the quality time with your children rather than saying like, I'm too busy or we'll do this later or whatever. And I think that's a nice analogy because I think a lot of people, most people, and I'll be brutally honest about this, they get into fitness because they don't feel good. So whether that is because they don't feel comfortable in their bodies, you know, they're carrying too much weight and they don't feel good, they don't like what they see, whether it is because their back hurts or their knees hurt, most people don't come to me and say like, I feel amazing, I want to just feel more amazing. Most people come to me because they are in a bit of a, you know, sticky spot and they're not feeling great. And it's just a bit of a shame that it takes us to like get to that point to actually start. But I just think it's really important because as much as, yes, we're all riders, like you're right, it sounds really corny, but you don't have anything if you don't have your health. And the best way you can protect that is by actually like working on it for yourself. And I think that's a reminder because it's easy to get too specific with these things. And I think that's a reminder that we can all have. And yeah, like twice a week, going and doing some strength sessions from home. Like most of my clients train at home. There's a handful who go to the gym, but the majority are at home because it's time effective. They feel comfortable there. Like it's whatever works for you. But you don't have to be doing like, you know, 90-minute sessions or traveling for 2 hours to get to the gym and training for 6 nights a week. Like it's figuring out what works for you. And often doing a little bit, that's going to be more effective than trying to do too much.
No, that sounds completely logical. And you're going back to, you know, the your health. If you don't have your health, you haven't got anything, sort of thing. You know, I think when the psychologist, if you ever go to a psychologist and say, you know, there's an issue with me, I think they'll ask you 3 things: how was your sleep, how was your diet, and how was your exercise? And like I said, if one of those 3 is off, if your sleep is off, then you're going to feel like crap. If your diet's off, you're going to feel like crap. Your exercise off, you're going to feel like crap. And if all 3 of them are off, oh my goodness! But they all sort of go into each other, don't they? If your sleep's bad, you're not going to want to exercise. You're not going to want to eat well. If you don't eat well, you're not going to sleep well, and you're not going to exercise well. And I think it's really, really simple, but again, it's very, very hard for people to fit those 3 aspects of the health in. Clearly, that's where you can come in to sort of guide them through. But let's say, for example, I'm a rider. I call you up. I say, hey, Katie, listen, I want to get better with my riding. I want to get stronger. Where do I start? Like, how does that process work with you?
As in, like, how I actually like work with the person one-to-one, or?
Yeah. What's your process? Like me as a beginner, I'm calling you up. You've no idea who I am. You've no idea how I ride. You don't know my lifestyle, anything like that. And how do you get from not knowing the client to a full program for them?
Yeah. So to start with Zoom, if I don't know them. So I always do video calls. This is something I'm quite a stickler on. Like a lot of people will maybe not feel comfortable to put their cameras on. Some people will just, not have access to a video call. But the reality is, if this is something you really want to do in this day and age, even if you are like, my dad's like a tech phobe and he's finally got an iPhone, like he can just about do a FaceTime call. So if he can, most people can figure it out. But the reason I like to do video calls is because it's a conversation. Like you actually get to meet somebody, you get to know them, you get a better idea of like who they are, what their, kind of traits are, like their behaviors, their personality. And I won't lie, like I have got on a call once or twice with people and I've just thought like nothing against them, like it wasn't anything personal, but I've just like kind of met them, saw their vibe and I was like, this just isn't going to work. They're not the right fit. And obviously like it's the same for the shoes on the other foot. Like they need to make sure that I'm the right fit for them. And I would always say that, like if anyone's like, you're just not really the person for me, I'm not going to be offended because I had this conversation with someone the other day and she was like, it's the first program. I actually feel like I've been understood by the coach. Like, you're not just giving me like a list of stuff to do and telling me I have to do this, or I have to eat this. You actually have like helped me to like work through it and work a process and understand like what my days look like. But if you don't do that first bit, like, how are you going to help someone? Because if you don't know what their day-to-day looks like, and I just give you a generic program for, you know, Susie who lives next door, it's not going to work for you. So getting to know the person is always number one. I've got like 3 varying different tiers, but kind of like my bread and butter is the one-to-one personalized program. The reason I like that is because I like giving people what they need. So obviously, like, you know, if I can see, like, you know, I meet you, I can see what you need in terms of help with, it might be managing your time a little bit better. You might come across on the call like you're very stressed, you're very overwhelmed, like the busy mum kind of stereotype. Like, that person always, I love working with them because I'm like, this is so cool. Like, they've got 3 kids under 5 and they genuinely have no time, but she's still sitting there saying like, when the kids are in bed, I'm going to do this for myself. So a lot of this is lifestyle based. It's looking at what you do. I've got a couple of clients who work shifts. So one's a doctor, one is a security manager. So like one week they'll be doing, you know, afternoon shifts, and they'll be doing early mornings, then they'll be doing nights. So again, like, all that stuff's really important because you're not going to train the same when you're on night shifts as you would with the day shift. So getting to know somebody, the lifestyle, that's the first kind of start point. If it's inside the one-to-one, like fully bespoke personalized program, then that's where like we'd kind of screen you off horse. You asked that earlier, and I don't think I really answered that. But like, yes, any videos of like you riding, particularly if like, it's probably horrible to ask somebody to do it, but if you can be videoed from behind, like trotting down the arena from behind, because trust me, I watched one the other day and he was like, yeah, I'm riding really straight and the horses are going really well. And I was like, oh dear, you've not watched your video, like literally sat like this, but it's hard to feel it sometimes. So, you know, video writing, that's a really good wake up call. And then, yeah, like once we've been through that assessment, I can physically see what you need. And then it depends on goals as well. Like, you know, I've got a client at the moment, and one of her main goal is for the horses. She's got a 4-year-old, like she hasn't had a 4-year-old for 5-6 years. She coaches other riders in terms of like helping them with their riding and their horses lessons wise. And she does a lot of riding for clients, so getting on other people's horses as well. But she also wants to work on pull-ups. That's been a goal of hers forever. So it's also looking at like, okay, well, what do you need? Like, you know, this is what we can see you're lacking. So I'm trying to think of her because it's easier if I think of client examples. She didn't have very good stability in her feet. That was one thing. So like her feet were rolling in quite a lot. So then when you ask her to use her lower body, she's quite unstable through her knees, through her hips. Then she was saying to me like, oh, I always get a sore back when I've ridden quite a lot, or if it's like a really hard flat work session, I always get a really sore back. Well, no surprise, because your legs aren't really, you know, strong enough and they're not working as well as they could because you're lacking that stability. So it's kind of looking through all of that, figuring out like, right, you need a bit of this, you need a bit of that. Obviously, okay, you want to work towards pull-ups, so we need to make sure like those movements are in. And then building out the program from there. But in terms of like, then like week to week, what it would look like, the majority of people, I would probably say, like ideally, if you can, 3 strength sessions a week, that's amazing. I'd always go full body training sessions because they're way more time effective. If you think about how we ride as well, like it's actually very old fashioned now in training to go and do like chest day or go and do back day or whatever it is. And again, we're not bodybuilders. Like if you go into the gym and you do a chest session for an hour, you will likely not be very well the next day through your pectoral area and your shoulders. So if you think about then trying to ride or like muck out the next day, it's not going to be very doable. So when we talk about functional training, it's also thinking about like what is functional for my life. Like, you know, how can I actually wake up tomorrow, not feel like, you know, my legs are about to fall off or my arms can't go over my head, and figuring that out. And I think, yeah, like three strength sessions a week with a bit of conditioning in them. That's amazing. And with strength training, the more volume you're getting in across the week, the more progress you're going to see. So that's why I always go with 3. But I mean, like if you're really time poor, 2 to begin with. And then the aerobic fitness, it kind of depends on goals. It depends on likes. I hear a lot of people are like, I know I should run, but I hate it. And whenever anyone says that, I'm like, don't run then. Like, you know, fitness is hard enough. If you're going to force yourself to do something that you hate, it's like, you know, we've all ridden that one horse that maybe you try and jump and he's like, absolutely not. I am not jumping. Like, I'm sure we've all had one pony or one horse like that. You're not going to get to the other side of it with that kind of a horse. And it's the same for us. Like if you hate it, don't do it because you won't stick to it. So whenever it comes to like, yeah, designing a program for a particular rider, it's looking at all those elements. But then week to week, and I think this is also where riders go quite wrong, it's making sure that you're applying what we call progressive overload. So progressive overload is like the secret to getting stronger and fitter, if you like. But it basically means you're doing a little bit more each week. So it might be, let's say in a squat, getting a little bit lower each week. That would be like the first place to start. Like if I work with you and I was like, right, you've not got full depth in your squat, we're not going to add weight, we're not going to make it any more complicated until you can get your hips below your knees, which again, most riders probably can't. They probably honestly can't do that. So it's looking at what you need and working from there, and just literally progressing it a tiny bit week to week, but not 1 week doing squats, dead bugs, mountain climbers, shoulder presses, and then the next session doing something else completely random, and the next week after that doing random. It's what I call throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's just like doing random shit, hoping it's going to stick. And then, 3 months down the line, you're like, oh, it's not worked. Why has it not worked? Well, you weren't consistent with it. Trying to improve your, let's say, simple changes on your horse, like whether it's canter to walk or trot to walk, unless you practice them, things aren't going to get better. So I think that's where we need to do that as well. Keep things simple, a little bit of progress week to week, and make sure that it's actually like a routine you can stick to as well. Because if a client isn't fully honest, or if you said to me oh yeah, I want to train all the time, and this is really common, I'll ask people in their onboarding questionnaire, so they go away and do some paperwork, and I'll say, what's your ideal training week? Train 6 times a week. And then I read through and I'm like, I'm in the office for 8, I work till 5:30, then I go to the yard, I get to the yard at 6, I ride the horse till 7. On a Wednesday I don't ride, but I'm still there till 7:30. And I'm like, how the hell do you think you're going to fit in 6 sessions a week? But it comes from a place of good intentions, because you want to see results and you want to start working. And this is again where I think any equestrian person can kind of go a bit wrong. I've never met a rider who doesn't work hard. I've had riders say to me oh, I'm just lazy. And they're not lazy. They're either completely overwhelmed, completely burnt out, or they just don't have a clue where to start. So that trying to do everything in one approach, it's not a bad thing, but it's not sustainable in the long run, unless it's always going to be more. If you can do a fitness program where you think, oh, I've only got to go to the gym 3 times this week, I still get 4 rest days, that's going to be the one you can stick to.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you instead of it's like these diets, you go on a diet and then people come off the diet and then they put the weight back on straight away. It sounds like you have to sort of want to change your lifestyle as well. I do have a question for you though. I mean, with riders and non-riders, I suppose you've trained both. How important is it to not overload riders, so they feel guilty for not completing the tasks, I suppose, that you set? Do you know what I mean? It's like I've had a few friends actually that have gone, they've said to me, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, and then they've only managed to do 2 days a week, and then they've just packed it in for the rest of the week. Where do you draw the balance when you're drawing up plans like this?
I think in that sort of, so first of all, it's being realistic, and most people probably aren't overly realistic. I'll be honest, I'm very unrealistic with time. So I'll be like, oh, I can fit in this, and then it gets to 12 o'clock and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so behind. But I just try and pack in too much into the day, and I think all of us probably do that. So I think being realistic is the first step, because if you've got 5 sessions a week and you're not hitting them, there's either 2 things happening. Either you're just sacking it off and you're, not getting on with it, which in that case, I would always say to you, why are you doing this? Honestly, why are you doing it? Why is going to the gym important for you? And if you're like, oh, well, because, I think I should be a bit healthier and I think I should be a bit fitter, that's not going to drive you to go to the gym at 6:30 in the evening when you've had a crappy day at work, it's cold, it's raining. Of course, you're not going to want to go to the gym. But if you're like, actually, do you know what? I am doing this because I've had enough of every time I ride, doubting myself, doubting my confidence. I'm shit scared that I'm going to get bucked off because I had a really bad fall last year and I know that I'm not strong enough and I'm not balanced enough. That connects you to why you're doing it. And sometimes we do just need to give ourselves a kick up the arse and say get on with it, go and do it. So that's one coin. And then the other side of it is going to be, unrealistic expectations. And this is probably, like I'm saying, riders are hard workers. They don't often need to kick up the arse. Unrealistic expectations is a bigger thing, because if you ever end up disappointed, whether it's with like a competition result, you're working to achieve something and you don't get it, it's either because you didn't put the work in, or you weren't realistic with that expectation. So maybe you didn't give it long enough. Maybe actually you didn't put enough work in. Maybe you didn't have enough time for it. And I would say, like it's unrealistic expectations 9 out of 10 times. And, the more you kind of, I don't like that word, but fail at something. So, you've said to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times this week. If you can't do that for 4 weeks in a row, of course you're going to go, oh my God, I'm going to hit, what do you call it? Throw the towel in. And this is a conversation I have with clients a lot, because what my app actually does is you get rated. So the more workouts you do, you get a higher score. Like if you miss workouts, you get a big red cross, and then your compliancy rating starts to go down. So for a lot of people, it's very motivating, because it gives you that level of accountability. And obviously when you log into your app, like there's some people that like really get quite competitive with it, and they'll be like, oh my God, I didn't tick this. Like, can you tick it? Because it's dropped my rating. But it's a good way to hold us accountable. But I know for a lot of people, when you start to see those like red crosses adding up, your rating drops and it drops and it drops and it drops. You're like, well, I knew it. I couldn't do it anyway. So what's the point? So that mindset of thinking, what's the point? I think that's something we need to work on. And obviously mindset's a huge part of this. If something's not working and you've said to yourself, I want to go to the gym 5 times a week, you've gone twice, you've still trained twice. Like, first of all, like before you just jump onto the negative, you've still done the thing you said you were going to do twice. So then figure out like, right, okay. And you mentioned something earlier about like thinking about things logically. Most of us don't think logically. We think emotionally. So we think, oh, I failed. I didn't do it. I didn't work hard enough. Logically, what actually happened? So like Friday, my example, a family thing happened, so I had to go and meet my dad at the doctor's. That wasn't part of my day, and I lost an hour and a half of my afternoon. So then all of a sudden, like, I had a really nice Friday planned out, plenty of time to ride, plenty of time to train, and then my plan got thrown off. So you have to look back at the week. And then I didn't train that day actually in the end, because I didn't have time to train and do everything else. So if you can look back and go, actually, that didn't happen because this thing with a family emergency or a horse situation happened, and that took my time. Okay, well, I didn't just not bother. It was just one of those things that's completely outside of my control. You can't change that. It happens. But then obviously, if you look back and you can see, well, actually, I planned to go to the gym at, 6:30 in the evening. And actually, if I think about it, I've been absolutely knackered by 6:00 in the evening. That's just not working for me. Okay, so think about next week. How can we change it? And obviously, some people are going to be, unfortunately, like stuck to a schedule of a certain training time. And if that is you've just got to make it work as best you can. But I think honestly, like a lot of people just throw the towel in and think, oh, I've not done it well enough, without even appreciating the fact of what they have done well, if that makes sense. So I think it's flipping the mindset on this one. And there is a level of it, like I said, where, you do just have to get on with it. Like, I have a particular client, she'd struggled a little bit, actually through the winter more than anything, to be really consistent with her routine. And I can't remember originally what we started with, but I think like 4 training sessions in the gym, 1 or 2 runs a week. And like some weeks she'd do it all, some weeks she wouldn't. And like she was really struggling with the fact that she wasn't consistent. And anyway, it was about 2 years ago, and she was like, I just want to be consistent. I want to have a routine that at the end of every week I look back and I say I did everything as I had planned. I'm not saying like, every week I check in, oh, I missed a workout or my runs didn't happen. So there were some changes we made that we stripped things back a little bit. She now trains 3 days a week. She does train late. So like last night, she didn't finish work till about 7:30. By the time she gets to the gym, it's 8:00. So she is training later, but that's what works for her day to fit it in. And there was an element there where she said to me, like, if I'm brutally honest, there have been days where I've gone, can't be bothered. And she said, if I asked myself, like, am I like, physically too tired to train? Like, yes, I'm tired. I've been at work all day, but I'm not too tired to train. Like, am I not well fueled enough? Well, no, I've eaten plenty all day. And there was an element of that where like she kind of gave herself a bit of a kick up the arse as well. So I think it's a bit of both with routine. And it's probably like, if you're in that sticky spot now where you're like not being able to stick to your plan, then being honest with yourself and saying, like, do you just need to work a bit harder, or is the plan not very realistic? And I think, yeah, we're all bad, like I said, at being realistic with time, but sometimes it can be the most freeing thing where you go, I'm being really unrealistic with my time here. Like, this is just not something I can do, because then you actually build a routine that works for you. And yeah, the whole like, I've not got time to train, or I can't fit it in, that's like a classic line I hear all the time. And none of us have time, let's be honest. Like, whether I don't think it matters what it is, like whether it's children, whether it's horses, whether it's full-time jobs, whether it's side jobs, whatever it is, none of us have extra time, and it's about making time for the things that actually matter to you. That's the only way it will work long term.
Just going back to the with the clients, and I had a nutritionist. I was speaking to a nutritionist the other week, and we sort of came to the conclusion that people don't do things unless they seem to unless they don't suffer. Unless they suffer, they think it doesn't work.
Yeah, I would say that's quite true. Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, if they're not going through some sort of hardship and they're in such pain or whatever it is, it's clearly not working for me. Like, do you feel like the same thing in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. I think like probably now compared to say 10 years ago, there's a little bit less of the like, smash yourself, you got to be dying on the floor covered in your own sweat and dying. Like, I'm saying it in a really bad American accent because, like, think of Insanity. Like, Insanity was so popular. And I can't remember what Sean T, like, when you look at him now on Instagram, like, Sean T looks amazing. Like, he's ripped. But how many people could do that kind of training 6 days a week? And for the normal person, you work a 40-hour week, you've probably got incredibly high levels of stress. In this current climate, you're probably worried about money, you've got financial, things you're stressing about, paying the mortgage, all the rest of it. You mentioned earlier the sleep. You're probably not sleeping even 6 hours a night. Then you're going and doing this crazy thing where you are literally burning yourself out so hard. And that sort of training where you are working at like max capacity every single day, smashing yourself, your body cannot recover from that sort of training all of the time. It's just too much stress. And I always like to think of it, like, to explain it, like, simply, our body doesn't separate, like, having an argument with your husband about spending too much money on your new pony versus your body being really like wrecked after a hard workout. All of that stress goes into the same bucket. And it's our central nervous system's job to, like, control that stress and get rid of it. So you have to think of like, and exercise is stress. Like, there has to be an element of stress to, actually for it to give us the response we want in terms of getting fitter or stronger. But it's using that stress in the right way. So if what you're doing is constantly burning you out, you're going to end up in a really bad place. It's why people like go ham hard on things like HIIT classes, or like, I'm trying to think of other popular things that were like all the rage 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I couldn't do that anymore. Like, you just cannot sustain it like on a long-term level. And I think, the food example is classic. Like, I'm not going to eat any chocolate. I'm not going to touch any wine. I'm going to eat as little as possible. I'm not going to eat carbs. At some point, you're just going to, go, I feel like crap. I can't do this anymore. So there is a big level of like, whatever you want to call it, restriction, thinking that you need to smash yourself. And I love to see my clients work hard. Don't like, get me wrong. Most of my feedback each week is like, remember, like, make sure you feel like you've got one rep left in the tank. Like, you need to work hard enough. And some people are a little bit scared to like push the body that hard. But also it has to be managed across a week. And I think, any coach that you've worked with before that has the ambition of like, leaving you dying, sweating on the floor. Like, even now, like, I do CrossFit a little bit, and the idea of CrossFit at the end, like, a lot of people look at the workouts and be like, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, that's crazy. Like, why would you do that? But
it is mad.
And like, a lot of the workouts, I do lie on the floor for 5 minutes after thinking like, oh my God, that was horrendous. But we don't train like that every single day. And you're also not like, pushing your body to 110% every time. So I think it's important with that because, I've had a lot of clients say to me before, like, oh, your training doesn't make me really, really super sore by the end. I can walk the next day. And I'm like, good, because, if you're trying to get up, go and do the horses, ride, take the kids to school, if you can't even walk down the stairs, that's not personally what I call functional training. Like, a little bit of muscle soreness is to be expected. But, smashing yourself into the ground, it's just, it's like mythological. thinking that a good workout means like, you have to be sore as hell, or you have to like, be absolutely exhausted for 2 days. That's not good training. Like, that is not good training.
No, and I think that's it. If they feel as though the body isn't aching or hurt, whatever it is, they feel as though it's not working, but that's just not the case. Like recently, I've started eating. Like, it sounds counterproductive. I've started eating more, like eating breakfast in the morning, and I'm losing weight, and I don't understand how the heck that's happening. Like, I haven't eaten breakfast for 15 years, and I've already started eating, and I'm losing weight. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Your body is just, I don't know, I suppose it's not too complicated. I suppose if you feed it correctly, exercise it correctly, it'll do the rest, and the rest of the sleep and the eating will all fall into place as well, I think.
The body needs balance. That's the thing. And like, obviously men also have hormones and they need balance, but particularly like women, especially women of a certain age, when you're going through like perimenopause, menopause, that sort of time, our hormones can be like really, really out of whack. And this is why, like, when you start diving into strength, like, or not even strength, like fitness in general. And this is why, like I say, I'm a lifestyle coach as well, because there's no point in me giving somebody the best training program in the world. I don't give meal plans, but I will sit down with you, help to work out how many calories should you be eating. Let's build out a like week of meals that works for you. I don't give meal plans because, again, it's not going to teach you to do anything in the long term, but we build it out. But there's no point in me doing that with you if you are chronically stressed, if you're constantly exhausted, if you're sleeping 5 hours a night. So it's looking at all of those things. But yeah, like when you start eating breakfast and you go, oh my God, I'm losing weight, that could be for like a multitude of different reasons. But probably because you're finally like actually giving your body what it wants, like regular little bits of food through the day. So all of a sudden your hormones go, oh, okay, like we're not starving today. We don't need to panic. The world's not over, and then your body is able to do things better. And I think this is the thing, like, again, relate it back to the horses. Like, if you wanted your horse to lose weight, you probably wouldn't just cut out all of his hard feed straight away, or like take him off, 3 hard feeds a day to 1. You'd probably just gently feed him a little bit more, less feed. It's the same for us. Like, I know that sounds really basic and I hope it doesn't come across as patronizing, but it's funny because whenever I give like a client, like, imagine this with a horse, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. But when you explain it in like a body human term, it's like, no, I don't get that. But it's the same. Like, horses and us are the same. Like, it's just a different animal. So, think about what you do with your horse. Like, if you want to get your horse fitter, what are you going to do? You're probably not going to go and take him to the gallops and do a 16-minute gallop when, he's never been on the gallops before. It's just being like sensible and looking at all of these little bits. But I think the lifestyle thing is really, really big because, yeah, like sleep is the biggest thing. And you said something earlier about the 3 things of like sleep and nutrition and exercise. Most riders aren't getting enough of any of that. Like, they're not getting enough good quality nutrition. They're probably not eating enough on the whole. That's why they're struggling with feeling knackered. That's why, they always end up having to get a Mars bar and a Red Bull in the garage because they're knackered at 4:00 in the afternoon. They're not sleeping enough because they're trying to cram everything in. They're going to bed at midnight. They're up at 5. And at some point, you're not going to be able to sustain that anymore. Like, you are just not going to be able to keep that going.
Your body will break eventually, and also you'll probably develop other symptoms as well, which probably aren't going to be favourable for you. For one, not for riding, but for functioning day to day. I think a lot of pressure's put on people these days, and normally without the horses. And I think with the horses as well, I think you have to make sure that you've got that balance right. I think anyway. Like, I've seen it with Shan, like I've seen it with multiple people. It's like, if you're pushing yourself to, like I said, 110% every single day, you can't sustain it. It's impossible. It's impossible. Nothing can do that.
No, and I think, like, for me, like, the last year hasn't been a great year for me. Like, I lost my dog who I'd had for 16 years, which, like, that was horrible for me because it was like the one, even with like everything, like all the moves I've done in the years, like I've been in Devon, then I've moved away. Like, I did all of that at 18 or 19 by myself at points with a boyfriend, but that doesn't really need to be mentioned. But the one constant was always my dog. And like, I've done some big grown up stuff in the last few years. I've bought a house, I've like done this thing, I've got this responsibility. And it was really, really hard. And like, I often get to the end of the day, or like, I always try and ride around like 4, 4:30. And normally that's quite a nice break for the laptop. But obviously in the winter, like, it varies with time and darkness. But like I will often be guilty of like getting on him, and probably shouldn't say this if anyone from the BHS is listening, I'll probably get in trouble. But like I will reply to emails, or I'll be like, oh, I'll quickly reply to this person. And actually all of last year when I wasn't in a great place, every time I rode, I was like, God, like it just feels like I can take a breath of air in. So like I've been really like strict with myself that like I don't do that when I'm riding. Like I'm not going to go and like quickly, post something on social media. I'm not going to reply to a work client. I'm actually just going to go and ride my horse. And, even if I like last night I did like 15, 20 minutes of schooling in the field, I got on and I just like walked around the farm for 10 minutes first, like just literally got on and just, kind of, it sounds really fluffy, but like connected with him. But like that, and it does, like every time I ride, it's the one thing that I come back and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever's happened this day, like whatever didn't get done, whatever crap has happened, actually, that's been a really good part of my day. And when you're in that, like, constant state of stress, like I have quite a few days where I feel like really overwhelmed, and I hate the feeling because it just feels like you can't make a decision, like your brain's going at 100 miles an hour. Everything feels so urgent. You don't have any time. And I wouldn't say like when I'm not in that mood, I have any more time. Like I got off yesterday and I was like, crap, I've got 20 minutes to knock out, get changed, have a shower, go to the gym so I don't smell like pony pee. And it's always a bit of a rush, but like you actually feel so much better for it. And like, I find it hard because particularly running your own business, like, there's so many things to do and it's just me. Like I don't have any help. I don't have anyone that I employ or I do anything with. And yeah, I like to do it like that. I probably make my life harder than it needs to be. But you can only get so much done in a day. And when you actually like appreciate that. And I think again, it's going back to that point, like, the client that said that to me, it was actually this morning, about like producing the horse for the long run, the young horse. Like one day is not going to make a big impact on anything. Like you're not going to achieve anything huge in one day. So I think it's reminding yourself of that and remembering that like it's a culmination of things. And a lot of the time, like, rather than trying to think whatever it is with your day, whether it's work, fitness, a session with the horse, rather than like, go and do it 10 times better than the day before, just do it well enough so you're maintaining things, because when you maintain things, that's when you feel good, and that's when everything feels like, under control and in balance.
Yeah, no, yeah, logical, easy to follow, but it's very, very difficult to put into practice, I think, because like I said, it's people don't believe it works, but it does. And you say about even when you were going connecting with the horse, schooling, whatever it was, you do with him, that is, you probably don't realize it, but your brain is just getting the break that it needs. That I have that as well. I have got my little hobby that I do, and for an hour, half an hour, whatever it is, my brain just switches off and concentrating on it. Actually, so much so yesterday I was concentrating on it, and I just dribble nearly came out of my mouth. I was concentrating that much. I was like, oh, I was so happy nobody's seen that. I mean, everybody now knows about it, but even so, you're just giving your body and your brain that time, and it's so important to not only exercise like you say, but also to rest, also just to disconnect from it, and I don't think a lot of people have the opportunity to. And that's one thing with the horses that you do get, when you're riding, when you're mucking out, when you're only concentrating on that. And I think that's one fantastic, another fantastic aspect about owning a horse or being a horse rider, is that you do get that mental break.
Yeah, I think
not physical.
Most like content producers, like James Smith is someone who's quite big in the fitness world, and he always says like if he's struggling for content ideas or email ideas for that week, he goes and gets in the shower, and then like he talks to whatever device it is, because obviously you can't have a pen and paper in the shower, and he like shouts all his ideas to it, but it's his time where he thinks. But like for any of us that are mucking out, like, mucking out's like the best way to get some good, like creative thoughts going, because you just start thinking about things, and, it does, you're right. It gives you that moment to like, maybe not switch the brain off, but you're switching on to something else so you can think in a different way. And I think that's what's important. And personally for me, like, yes, like, and I completely agree with what you're saying, that you do need to find that balance with resting completely sometimes. But personally, for me, that mental side of things, that's what training gives me. Like if I've had a really long, stressful day or I think like I've not done this well enough or I've not finished that, going and training, because you have to concentrate. Like you can't go and, do movements in the gym without using your brain a little bit, but it actually allows your brain to switch off from everything else. So for me, that's a big game changer. And that's probably why I'm so like, that's the one thing with my day, like the horses and my training, that I'm like regimented with. It goes in the diary, it goes in my Google Calendar. So nothing else can get booked in that time. And that's just like how it works for me. And that's how I keep it consistent.
Brilliant. No, well, it sounds perfect. And like I said, it's, I think some people can't see the wood through the trees sometimes. And it'd be really helpful to have someone like yourself to sort of point out that it's okay to just, not think that you're Superwoman or Superman, and just do things that you're able to do, that you're capable of doing, and not overexert yourself.
I think we all need a bit of like, I think people get stuck in this. Like I had a really good conversation with a business coach the other day, and like he's a PT too. He used to do a lot of strongman. So like he gets the whole like, having a hobby that's competitive and all the rest of it. And I just had a good conversation with him. And like I said, like I was a bit frustrated because I feel like I've done certain things for long enough. I should be better at it, or I should be like seeing more of a result. And he was like, you're being really hard on yourself. Like, if you look at things with a bit more perspective. But I shared that a while ago, and because obviously money is something that comes up quite a lot. People will say like, how much do you charge? Oh, I can't afford it, or whatever it is, or I don't work on my fitness because it's too expensive. I added it up at the end of the year before last, I think it was. I didn't add it up last year, so hopefully it's not got too much more. But since 2020, I've spent £23,000 on coaches for myself and my business. When you add it all up. So that sounds ludicrous. And when I added it up for a minute, I was like, shit, I could have bought a really nice pony with that. But the reason that I've done that is because I've always worked with a coach in some capacity for my own training. That's partly because I want to make sure that like I'm doing all of the right things for my goals. I also want to learn. So, if I'm going to go and work with a coach in person or online, I'm going to learn from them. Like when I started online coaching, the first thing I did was get an online coach. I was completely transparent and I said, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to build. I want to see how it works. And obviously, like, I think he was a physique coach. So like it had nothing to do with like sports performance. But you learn a lot. And then like a huge amount of mindset mentoring and things like that. But just sometimes having that person at the end of the phone, I know that's why like a lot of my clients have got a few that have been in for like 5-6 years, and we always joke that like, they've been there for ages, but they like having that person that they can say like, at the end of the day, send a voice note. This has happened today. It's been awesome. Like, it's amazing. What should I do next? Or equally like, this has been absolutely terrible. Like, can you help me? What should I do? Like, how do I move forward? And I think we all need that like outside perspective sometimes, because you can't zoom out of your own like situation. Like you just can't. Like, and obviously we can't do that. We're in it. So sometimes having someone that can take that like, zoomed out lens and actually give you some perspective, and they can give you some support and figure out a way to move forward. I think that's something we all need. So like, when you then look at like all of the money, I'm not saying that to brag. Like when I added it up, I was like, oh shit, that's quite a lot of money. But all of that, like I've learned something from every program, and I've like made new connections. I've, met other coaches or whatever it is. And I think you just, you learn a lot more, but you get so much support and you get to look at things in a different perspective. Because I do think that's one thing with a lot of equestrian people, like, particularly, I would say, I don't know how to word this without offending anyone. Like if I look at some members of my family, the older generation, they're very like mentally fixed in their mindset of like, this is how you do it. This is how you don't do it. This is right. This is wrong. And like my whole coaching journey has taught me, and I'm not a fluffy, like, kumbaya person. I'm not that at all. But there isn't a right or wrong answer. And it's like being open-minded to try new things, to say like, okay, well, I've never done any breath work before. Yes, it sounds a bit fluffy, but why don't I just try it and see if it helps? And like, Definitely. All of those little things, like we had this conversation the other day about when you're talking about switching your brain off. And I actually asked my client who's 67, like, what do you do? And she was like, I find it really hard to not go back out onto the farm at like 9:30 or start tidying up the house or just doing another job. So she does Sudokus. And I actually thought that's a really good idea. So I started doing crosswords and like little things like that. It sounds ridiculous and it's probably, a bit whatever, lame. But it's just really good to like do something else. So yeah, like it's just balance. I think we've talked about that quite a lot.
No, I think I think it is. I think it is. But no, Sudoku is not or crosswords or anything like that. I think those things are. It just because someone else doesn't enjoy it doesn't mean that it's lame or whatever, but if it worked for you, then perfect. And as well, like you're saying, you went through these, you've been on these the online coaches yourself. That must have been really helpful for you as well, because you've probably, I mean, again, we don't have to go into it too deep with it, but obviously everyone has things that happen to them in their lives and has issues. Some people just carry it and don't do anything about it, and then it comes out in other ways. I've had that personally for me. But then if you go and deal with it, it feels a lot, it feels like a weight's been lifted off, but a lot of people are too scared, scared's not the right answer. It's probably too maybe stubborn, because they think, oh, I'm fine, because it's mental. I'm fine. I'm not mentally weak or anything like that. But it's not about being weak. It's about going through the process and going through the recovery and going through the training mentally as well as physically. So when people come onto you, you could probably relate to them quite well, is what I'm more trying to get at, for the issues that they want to try and fix in their lives.
Yeah, I think people are scared. I'll put that one out there. Like I've been scared to do things like even I was actually talking to somebody that I follow, and she's really cool. She's got like 40,000 followers, mad into CrossFit, but she does like all the cool skills. And one reason, like I still do my own training because obviously CrossFit isn't riding specific, but I do CrossFit around that. And one reason I wanted to do it is because I want to challenge myself and do some of the really cool movements. I said the whole way through COVID, I trained in the yard. Like our gym was so good, and I at the time I trained in a strongman gym. They let us take kit, whatever we wanted. So I had my kit in a stable, and that was ideal. And then I said, once COVID ended, I'll go and do CrossFit. Never did it. Where I've actually bought my house, the gym is in that town. So I literally have zero excuses, and I finally did it. And I'll be honest, I was scared to go. I was scared to go and train in front of a load of people that are very fit. Like they just go and do these crazy skills. They're lifting loads of weight. Like, they'll go and jump on the rings and do like muscle ups where you pull yourself all the way up. And I can not even pull myself up on them. So there was definitely a level of being scared. I think there's a level of like, maybe being seen as well. So like I was a bit like, oh, what if they judge me? Or like, what if they think this or what if they think that? And I was completely wrong. Like it couldn't be a more supportive environment. But I think a lot of us are scared. We probably either don't want to admit it or maybe we don't realize it. And sometimes when you go, actually, do you know what? I need help to get through this. That's like the biggest thing. And obviously I have to be careful here because my profession is personal training and helping people get fitter. But like I've been through an eating disorder. That's kind of how I got into fitness in the first place, because all I used to do was run and not eat anything, and I was bulimic, throw up my food all the time. So if somebody comes to me, and actually there's a lot of girls that I work with, I've got a couple of clients that are early 20s, they've struggled. I've got clients in their mid 40s that they struggled a lot, and they'll say now, like, can we not do any like food tracking? I don't want to focus on the food. Like we'll look at like, photos of their day, for example, but we're not talking about calories, none of that. But like deeper down, obviously that stays with you. And like looking at, like you said, like when you start unpacking this stuff, you kind of start learning, okay, that's why I was doing this. But I think so many people have so many underlying things, whether it's a bit of like a, scar as such from something deeper, like an eating disorder or something traumatic, or even if it's just like, this is so common, like a really, really bad fall, like you broke your back, or, you did something where it properly debilitated your life. Like, you lost your independence, you were bedbound, or you couldn't go and do the horses, or you couldn't even like walk down the stairs. That can be incredibly mentally scarring for people to recover from. And I think more so when you are older, because the recovery time takes longer. Obviously, there's a bigger effect when you don't weight bear for 3 months or whatever it is. And like actually saying, and I've had people say that before, like, I broke my back 5 years ago, I'm scared to do it again. So that does happen a lot. And I think as well, like all of the other things that people are carrying, like, a lot of people maybe think it's irrelevant, so they don't mention it. But like I've got riders who, and again, it's varying ages, like some riders my age, some riders that are in their 40s, their 50s, they've got parents going through Alzheimer's, dementia, like, they're making hard decisions, they're caring for somebody, like all of those things as well. And it's a lot to carry by yourself. So as much as, like I'm a personal trainer, I'm not a therapist. And, if anyone is really struggling, I'd highly suggest working with somebody who can help you to process all of this, because it's the best thing you can do. But like the reason and like when I was saying earlier about like, you were asking, how do you work with somebody? When I know you, that's how I know to help you best, because like, does it really matter? Like I had a conversation with somebody the other day. Oh, I think I'm eating too much and I went over my calories today. Like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of what you're dealing with on a personal level this week. It doesn't fucking matter. Like you've still trained, you're riding the horses. Like, and I said, like, we'll just park it. Just eat well. If you are worried that you're not eating well, we can have that conversation, but we are not tracking calories or anything like that this week. And, sometimes you need that, don't you? And I think that is really important because, yeah, a lot of us aren't super honest maybe about saying like, oh, this is tough, or I'm struggling with this, or I'm dealing with this. And again, I think that's probably, like, without blowing my trumpet, why my coaching works. Because I always ask my clients to be like really, really honest with me. Like if they're struggling or if there's something going on in the background, like they don't have to go into details. Obviously it's their personal life. But equally, like I need to know so that I can help them. And it's the same thing for me. Like the more honest I am with them, the better result they're going to get. So yeah, I think we can all sometimes like, we definitely carry that stuff with us, and just sometimes talking through it and getting some help, it can be the best thing.
Definitely. No, definitely. I think, yeah. You were 100% correct. I mean, I didn't realize until, some things that happened to me when I was a kid, and I always used to like joke about it. And it was always like, that was how I dealt with it. It was like just joking about it. And then actually, it does upset me, what happened when I won't go into it now, but it does upset me, it did hurt me, but I never sort of admitted that I did. And once I sort of like went through those stages and admitted it, I felt like a weight's been lifted off. And I know we're going very, very deep into things like that, but I think it's so, I suppose, taking that first step. I know you're not a therapist in that sort of sense, but even the exercise, side of it will help massively with how you're feeling mentally. And maybe if you can get that right, then maybe you can go into a therapy session or build the confidence to go into a therapy session with it. I know we mainly should be talking about the riders, but I think it's all goes hand in hand. I think it's important as human beings as well. But going back to riders, because again, I think we've come off the subject a little bit. With riders, what is like one of the biggest mistakes that you see them doing? I
think we've probably covered most of this already, but doing too much.
Doing too much is probably the main thing. Yeah, I thought that would be.
Yeah. Going ham hard at it and then not being able to stick to it and then being like, oh, this isn't working. Probably overcomplicating it as well, like not respecting the process enough to actually start with the basics. Be patient. Like progress takes time, whether it's losing 5 kilos, whether it's getting stronger, whether it's nailing like 2 push-ups in a row. It's not going to happen overnight. Being patient is really, really important. And I think also not hyper focusing on one area. Like if you think about your body, like I don't really even know why core strength has become such a thing in rider fitness. And this really annoys me because like you'll see people, like this is classic, like what's rider fitness? What would come into your head? For most people, it's probably like standing on a Bosu ball where you stand on like, the flat surface and you tip it upside down. So it's that ball with like the on it, and you stand on it, or you do a one-legged squat, or you hold like a pigeon above your head while you try and do some crazy movement. Like where did we get that from rider fitness, and how is that core stability? Because when you look at every other sport, they all train for core stability. So look at like the athletics that's just been at the weekend. You had the World Championships indoors. All of those athletes are in the gym. They are not like doing a shoulder press as they are jumping the hurdles. They're doing strength training that complements jumping hurdles. So like, I don't really know how we got so lost. And like, this is where sport specific can get a little bit like messy, because you don't need to be doing crazy exercises. So I think just like remember what you are actually training for. And like when I say don't hyper focus on one thing, core, like why are we so obsessed with training our core? Your legs work quite a lot in the saddle. Like if you don't feel them, that's a bit concerning. Your back muscles work all of the time in the saddle. So, you want to be training all of those elements. So I think, like not over focusing on one thing, doing those crazy stupid, like, 20-minute ab workouts that you'll do for 3 days for 4 weeks, and then you won't do it again because funnily enough your back hurts or you haven't noticed any progress. So I think doing too much, hyper focusing on one thing, and honestly probably not respecting the process, because results do take time.
Mhm. Well, this, you make it sound so logical and just simple, which
It's
is
taken
great.
me a long time to get to that point, but it's
Well,
true.
but then this is it. This is why people come to you, because then you've gone through all the fluff and sort of gone, okay, this is what I found that works for me and my clients, and it's important. There's so much misinformation out there. So,
Yeah.
what I mean, the last question I've got in here is looking ahead. Like, where do you see the industry going in terms of fitness in the next 5 to 10 years, or is that quite a difficult one to sort of predict?
I think it's a bit worrying, if I'm honest. Like, I read that question earlier and I was trying to think, because obviously I had a look at your questions, and I was trying to think of like, what I was going to say or how I was going to answer it. A lot of them, were just like quite easy, natural questions to answer. And then I was kind of like, oh, well, hopefully it will be exciting. But I think it's a little bit worrying as well, because obviously a lot of like sports progress now is, moving forward with data and tech. Like, I know equi ratings is like a really popular, thing. And obviously we've got all of the stats with like percents of competitors or, whatever it is. And it's a big thing now, isn't it, in show jumping and eventing. And having those stats is really good, because obviously you can see where you're at, you can see how you're progressing, you can see your margins. But I think sometimes it gets a bit too techy. Like, when you're talking about like, am I fit enough? Like, the only way you can really test that is by going to a lab, like being put in the setting where you have, your VO2 max mask on. Honestly, it is. And like going on a treadmill, doing the test, like realistically, you probably can't afford that. Like, most people wouldn't be able to afford that. So I think it's a little bit worrying in that aspect, because obviously, as technology comes on, and like I was thinking about it, like even if you think back to 50 years ago, like I don't know when horse walkers were invented, but like we probably didn't even have horse walkers. And like my mum was saying this to me, because I asked her about your question, about like, why maybe did riders not used to take fitness as seriously? And like she said, well, one thing was I was galloping like probably 3 horses every single day. She had a string of 12 to 15. She did all their own gallop work, and they were galloping, to get like fit for badminton long formats. So if you think the amount of riding, it was a lot more. Like, horse walkers, we probably don't ride as much, which, obviously it's got pros and it's got cons, isn't it, for the horses doing more groundwork. But I think, it could get a bit messy with the technology, is my honest answer on that. So I hope it doesn't. Like, tech is amazing and the data is amazing, but data is like something that it gives us information to assess and be able to move forwards and make changes with. And that's what data should be. It shouldn't be like, this is the top score and you're below it or anything like that. So I think it's a bit worrying. I think it's awesome to see how far it's come. So obviously you've got some really cool facilities like the Performance Hub. I think that's Gloucestershire based. So they have their own team of trainers. I think I'm right in saying they have psychologists, they have physiotherapists, and a lot of riders can go there. I think you take your horses, you definitely can take your horse, but I think you take your horse is the idea. You have like off horse sessions, on horse sessions, and it's basically like everything in one. So I think that sort of facility, like if we could see more of those that are also more accessible to every level of rider, because the reality is, like, I don't know the exact price, but I know it's expensive. So most riders aren't going to have the funds to be able to go and do that. So I think seeing more of those like performance centers that actually like, start spreading it as a message where it's tied in. Like, you come here to put your horse on the water treadmill. Why don't you go to the gym while your horse is on the water treadmill? Or why don't you go and sit in the sauna? Like that sort of a thing. So I think, hopefully it would be good to see it going like that. But I just hope as well, because it's still quite new. Like when you look back at like, when strength conditioning came in, like training for sports, like it's not a new thing. And yet, like I said, we're still stuck in thinking like rider fitness is standing upside down on a Bosu ball or only doing yoga or only doing Pilates. Like, look at any other athlete. Like, if you don't believe me and you don't think that, Paula Radcliffe did strength training, go and look at the long distance runners and what they are doing. They are all in the gym. They are all doing their recovery work, foam rolling, stretching, mobility. They all do their aerobic work, and it's looking at the sport from that aspect. So I just hope it goes to a bit more of like a strength and conditioning from an aspect of performance, rather than us saying like, and this is a comment I see quite often, like, the Horsey Facebook groups, what does everybody do for their fitness to improve their riding? Like, it's not one magic fix.
No. Is it all individualized?
Yeah.
as well? Because it's one of them, like, do you get a lot of clients who are stronger in one area and weaker in others, and you have to build up on there all the time?
Yeah. Somebody said the other day, I can't work with you because I've just fractured my knee and I've only just got back to weight bearing. And I was like, you are absolutely fine to work with me. I've currently got an ACL client who had her op 3 months ago. She's doing really well, but she's trained the whole way through it. Like, she obviously had, I think we gave her 2 weeks off after the initial operation. She's trained the whole way through. We've done upper body work. We haven't touched her legs. I had a client who unfortunately broke her collarbone back in the end of October. Same thing. She had a couple of weeks because she was in quite a lot of pain. And then she said to me, like, right, I think I'm ready to start doing stuff. We've trained her legs the whole way through. We've done gentle mobility work. So, you can work through everything. And yes, it needs to be like individualized to you because obviously, in that situation, you're not going to be doing the same as everybody else. And obviously, like both of those examples, they've not been in the gym because they can't physically get there, but they've been training at home with like a little bit of kit. They've got like 1 or 2 weights, they've got bands, and we've done what they can. So yeah, like making sure, like, you don't have to have a broken leg to do that, but making sure that everything is like individualized for you. Yes, because absolutely, like, and a lot of riders, this is the thing, there won't be that many that will say like, oh, I know I'm weaker on my left side than my right. A lot of us aren't aware of that. Like, we won't notice it until somebody says, if you watch this video, just watch what happens here. And it's like, and again, that's why training's so powerful, because you start being able to actually feel how your body moves in space off horse. Then when you feel that, you're like, okay, this is happening. That's why when I ride, this thing happens. And then you can start to correct it. But like, if you can't even, and a lot of people can't feel this, and this isn't me saying it to like shame anybody, but like if I said to you right now, engage your core, like genuinely engage your core. So like I always like to say, if I was going to punch you in the stomach, like there'd be a rock wall there. It's not
ready.
If I punch you. So many people can't do that, or like typical, like, when you are having a lesson, my coach said to me to engage my left glute. How do I do that? Like, I can't teach you how to do it when you're riding if you can't do it on the floor, first of all. So it's like working from the ground up and making sure that, yeah, like you are doing the whole performance training that is needed. And obviously it's appropriate to you as well, because, somebody that's going to, let's say, Badminton 5-star in May, which is only a few weeks away, compared to somebody that has a goal of maybe doing a fun ride, different levels of fitness and endurance needed. So that's where it's important as well to like know what you're doing, because I think we all get lost in this, and I know I used to get very stuck in this. Like, you see somebody else training in a different way and you go like, oh god, should I be doing that?
Yes.
And
yes.
One thing that was really cool around the Winter Olympics is I can't remember which one it was, but there was a bobsledder. So in the bobsledders train with like one hand, I can't remember where they put the hand, I think on the bench, and the other hand goes on the treadmill, and they put the treadmill on and they run next to the treadmill. But obviously, like, they're in this like bear crawl position, but it's to mimic the start of the bobsled so that they get better at that low down position. And somebody walked up to her and was like, excuse me, do you want me to show you how to use the treadmill? And she was, oh, that's really kind, but actually, like, I'm a bobsledder, I'm doing it for a reason. And she said it was quite funny because they were like really embarrassed. But obviously you do see sometimes people doing some, like, one of my clients, this is awful, said the other day, she was in the gym and a guy got his hand stuck down the back of the Stairmaster. He was doing something funny and I think he wasn't using it quite properly, and then he dropped his keys. So, logic, of course. The Stairmaster's the machine that's like walking up a flight of stairs, and it moves, it rotates the whole time. He stuck his arm down the back of it to get his keys, and he got his arm stuck. So, let's not go doing that or going anything crazy. But I think sometimes just remembering that, like, training doesn't look the same for everybody, like that, and that's okay. Like, we don't need to be doing any kind of crazy lunatic exercises
Definitely. Definitely.
But if your training looks different to somebody, and again, it's injuries as well. Like, if somebody's, I don't know, got like chronic back issues, like I'm thinking of a family friend actually that I know that rides at an amateur level eventing, and like she's worked really hard to like be okay to ride out of pain, and yoga's a thing that's worked for her. Weight loss has massively helped, and yoga, and she doesn't really want to add in any strength training because she's worried that it might overdo her back. She's 67, so what she's doing is working. So I think it's important to remember that as well, that like, you've got to find what works for you and your body, and if you've had serious injuries, obviously that 100% needs to come into consideration, because that's a question I always ask. Have you had any injuries, regardless of how minor? Oh, no, nothing major. Any minor injuries? Oh yeah, I broke my ankle when I was 12 and I fractured my elbow and I've done this and I've done that. Like, you can 9 times out of 10 see it. Like, somebody will still have like, a foot that rolls in, or a knee that's unstable, or they won't have full range in their shoulder. So yeah, remembering that like injuries stay with us for a long time as well, that's important, so that you do the right things to improve them.
It blew my mind. I don't think I could. I don't think I could do what you do. There'd be too many variables that I'd be worried about all the time. It's crazy. Just well, when you were talking about the equipment, then because a lot of the clients that you deal with exercise at home, do they, or is it more in most at home? So what's like your go-to equipment for at home?
Packet and mini bands. So if you go on Amazon, other brands are available, obviously, but I like to use Core Balance. Their products are just good. So Core Balance pack of mini resistance bands. You get like 5 different levels. So easy to extra hard. They're brilliant for any sort of like lower body activation. So doing glute exercises, wearing them for like lower body strength movements. You can actually do upper body exercises with them too. One of their longer bands, so again, they're just called resistance bands, but then they have like long ones that look like a big loop. I'd suggest getting one red one of those. I think that's like £11, and a packet of mini bands is like a £5. And if you're completely new to training, that and your body weight to start with, that's enough.
Wow.
You don't need anything else. If you've maybe like dabbled a little bit, or like what you're talking about, like, if I say to you, go and do a program where you're squatting and you're going to do some single arm rows, you're going to do dead bugs, plank taps, lunges, and you know what all those exercises are, you probably, once you get into it for a couple of weeks, you probably find it comes back quite quickly. So maybe then adding in like a kettlebell, a pair of dumbbells, that would be good. But to start with, absolutely, like bands and body weight, that's enough to get going. And I'd always start people with that, because again, like I said, like I'm teaching and helping riders to move better so they can use their bodies better. Like, I'm not going to encourage somebody to load up an exercise if they're not doing it correctly to start with. And the other reason for that is like I remember other coaches at my old gym was that, you're like the form police. And obviously, like, there's a level with this, because some coaches will argue the other way. And I actually worked in a gym a couple of years ago, and one of the reasons I decided to leave, because I didn't really agree with that ethos, is that, like, you don't want to tell clients that they need to get better all of the time, because they'll get demotivated. Like, you need to let them sometimes put a bit more weight on the bar or get that win, which, yes, sometimes you do need to do that, but we're not 12, quite frankly. No. I don't think you should do that, because it gives you guys a false sense of, progression. And like, I'd be pissed off. Like, if somebody said to me like, oh yeah, your squat looks great, you're squatting really low, and then I watch it back on a video and I see that it's terrible, I'd be so pissed off. Like, I wouldn't trust that person. So, that's part of it for long-term progression, but it's also safety, because if you're not doing an exercise correctly, you could hurt yourself. And that is why a lot of people are scared of going in the gym, because they're worried about hurting themselves. So if you like give yourself the confidence and you know how to move well to start with, then you solve that problem entirely.
Wow. Yeah. It makes sense. Just simple. And essentially, just to start off doing it is 15 quid for some bands.
Literally, yeah, you've summed that up pretty well. Yeah.
But this is great. You don't need a set of dumbbells. You don't need a treadmill. You definitely don't need a Stairmaster, because your arm will get caught in it. It's these sort of things. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not expensive to get in. You can use your body weight. You can use the 15 quid bands, and then you just need to sort of know what you're doing, and that's it. It's simple.
I think sometimes we overcomplicate things, but I think sometimes it's also a bit of avoidance. Like, I've heard this before, like, I really want to get into spin, but I can't afford a Peloton bike. Like, unless you're a millionaire, I wouldn't say a Peloton bike is a particularly great use of money. I'd say you'd be better buying a push bike and going outside, especially now the weather's going to be better, and getting out on the road. Like, something like that. It's a very, it's one piece of kit. Again, like, you can only do one exercise on it. Like, yes, I know it has lots of different programs, and for some people, they love it. Like, a couple of people I know have one and they love it, and they, use it all the time. So it's good money to spend. But like, you don't need that to get going. Like, you really don't. And like, again, like if you go to a gym and I was programming you for a gym, you would rarely use I wouldn't personally program the treadmill in, because it's a faff and it takes too long to turn on, turn off, without falling off. like maybe a bit of cardio kit, like to warm up, maybe a bit of cardio kit in a conditioning workout. But other than that, it's going to be free weights, like a few possibly machines. But again, 9 times out of 10, I like to use free weights because if you think about what your body does when we ride, our core has to stabilize us as other bits are moving. If you sit on a machine, you like take out that stability element. So train with free weights, that's functional for riders. So it's looking at all of that. But yeah, like it doesn't need to be complicated. And I started training from home. I actually also had some, I don't know what you call them, I think they're ab sliders. They're like they're basically like plastic lids, or like you could do them on like trays, so you can do exercises like mountain climbers, windscreen wipers, where you take your legs out.
Yeah, no, I know which ones. Yeah.
I had a like really nice lino floor. They looked like pure wood, and they were actually really effective because they went very, very fast. But in all honesty, I didn't feel confident to train at the gym that I worked at. I just didn't want to. I didn't feel confident mainly around the men. I was like, what if they look at me and think I don't know what I'm doing? And like when I did start training there, like occasionally they'd be like, oh, can I give you a bit of advice? And I'd be like, oh God, oh God, oh God. But that's how you get better. Like, and I wouldn't have got to that point if I hadn't started training at home. So yeah, if you're lacking confidence, train at home. And for so many people as well, like, yeah, that's the majority of my clients do train from home. I'd probably say about 70%. But it works for people. It's time effective and you can fit it in when you want.
Exactly. You're saving a lot of time than going to the gym and like physically traveling there. I mean, like, yeah, so that's why I do. I work out at home. I've only ever been able to stick to it if it's at home. Like if I have to go somewhere, it just, doesn't go very well. We've been talking for a very, very, an incredibly long time. This is what this goes into it. Before we move on to the last sort of section, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Is there anything else that we've missed off that you think was important to include in the episode?
I feel like we've talked about a lot around fitness and maybe not fitness directly, but I think, yeah, like obviously when people are listening to this, they've probably listened to try and, get some help, get some advice with getting themselves feeling fitter, getting better. And you probably either in two camps that you want to get out of pain, something hurts, like your back or your knees or something's hurting, or you're just permanently knackered. Or maybe you just actually want to look a little bit better in front of your husband when you put your underwear on, or you want to actually be able to go on holiday this year with your wife and, put your swimming trunks on and look good. Like, let's be honest, we all want that, regardless of what performance goals we're training for. So I think, in order to do that, achieve that, and also ride well, we've kind of covered most things. Like you said, and I do appreciate that, it's hard when like I've spent such a long time doing it. And like doing podcasts and things like this is great because it helps me, like this afternoon when I then go back into coaching my clients, I'm going to be like giving way more simple feedback because it's a reminder that we don't need to do like crazy complex things. But yeah, I think we've covered most things. That there isn't one particular, like there's not one particular exercise I can give you right now. Like I might say on Instagram, here's 3 exercises that improve your upper back strength. They absolutely do that. But there isn't like one exercise that's going to fix everything. So I think like if anyone, wants to start and they don't know how, follow a full body training program. That's the first thing. If you are like completely new to training and you've never done anything, like if personalization is important so that you obviously give your body what you need. But if you move pretty well, if you've not had any like, serious injuries before, just follow like a full body program for 3 days a week. I've got a free 30 days coaching series that's got workouts in it. Like if anybody would like a 7-day free workout plan, like I'm more than happy to share that with people. And honestly, rinse and repeat it for 4 weeks. Like start going to higher reps, use a bit more resistance, but keep it simple. And I think really like what we've talked about, like I think from what I can remember, what we've talked about in the last couple of hours, we've talked a lot about like balance, keeping things simple, and the lifestyle aspects. It goes the longest way. Sleep, it's the biggest thing in the world and it's free. Like all these people go do crazy stuff. They go and pay physios 50 quid a session, 60 quid a session. They go and, go and do like cryo baths. That's really popular now. Go and sit in the freezing chamber. Go and do like all this crazy recovery stuff that isn't free. You have to pay for it. Like, let's just remember that. You can sleep for 8 hours a night. I don't know any equestrian that probably wouldn't want to go to sleep at the end of a long day. And it's free and it's literally the best thing you can do for your body. Like you said, if you go and see a psychologist, and probably same with the doctor, if you have a physical or a mental problem, they will ask, what's your sleep like? And honestly, like, go and do some research into sleep, because when you start looking at like all the sleep stats are out there, like, do you know like that your body has sleep cycles? Do you know how many sleep cycles you need? Like all of that. It's very, very interesting. So yeah, I think like lock down on the lifestyle basics and just start simple, really. And yeah, don't let yourself like, kid you off by saying, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or it's too expensive to get going, because you probably don't know what you're doing. And the only way you're going to figure it out is by actually starting.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. It is simple, but like I said, just people overcomplicate it.
And when you're a beginner, as long as you're not going into the gym and trying to like deadlift 100-kilo bar, well, likelihood you're not going to do any damage. Like you might do a push-up, get it a little bit wrong, and you might tweak your wrist, or you might face plant, or you might do a lunge and you might lose your balance and fall over. It's part of getting better at things. Like, me, like with my Olympic lifting, I hated last year when I was learning to snatch. It's a really fun movement, but it's really technically hard. I ended up on my ass in the gym so many times in front of all of the guys that do strongman training, and they were already looking at me like, what is she doing? That's not how we do it. So then to end up like doing it with no weight on the bar, sitting on my bum all of the time, I was like, oh my God, it just is so embarrassing. And now I can do that movement. I can do it repeatedly with a bit more weight on the bar. I don't fall over anymore. But like, and I think that's something we kind of like lose as we get older, that ability to actually say like, right, I'll try it. Okay, I'm not very good at this, but like, you have to get better at these things. Like that's the only way you improve.
It's progress, isn't it? You got to start. The cost of entry is embarrassment, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you don't know anything or something new, you're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to fail, and that's the cost. The price of entry, and some people aren't willing to pay that price.
But the price of not doing it, like when you weigh up the price of not doing it versus the outcome that you could get, like, yes, it might be messy. Yes, to start with, you're going to keep looking for that one fix and think it's a magic solution, which it's not. But like, what is the price of staying where you are right now? If you feel crap, if you are in pain, if you are not happy with how you are riding, with your body, even with your life, if you want to get a bit bigger, you're only going to change that if you actually do something about it. And like, I think that's important to remind us of, because, it is at the end of the day, like it's up to us, isn't it? We have to make those changes.
Definitely. I think there's a saying, isn't it? Is it the cost, you'll only make a change when the cost of not changing is worse than making, or not as worse as making the change, something like that.
Yeah, it's a good mindset practice to like, imagine if you stayed where you were right now for the next like 10, 15 years. Like, what would the outcome of that be for like you mentally, physically, all the rest of it? Like what, rather than just risking going and doing a gym session and looking like an idiot for a couple of times. Like,
but for some people, people have to weigh that up, and some people will be like, no, it's definitely it's not worth that for me. But
that's a mindset thing, because if anybody would sit here and say working on my health and fitness isn't worth it for me, I think you're lying. Sorry. I think you're absolutely kidding yourself, because you could, even if you're, as fit as anything, you could probably be that little bit fitter or stronger. And like we said, again, like working on your fitness and health, the end product is that you are fit. Most people that listen to this probably want to be riding when they are 50, they're 60, they're 70. If you want to do that, you need to look after your body. So yeah, I wouldn't buy that. If anyone said like, now just stay where I am, it's probably a fear thing. And that's honestly like I said earlier, through all of the coaching I've done, like in terms of like developing as a coach, mindset's a huge part of it, and like opening yourself up to challenging how you think, like that's the only way you're going to change.
No, I agree. It is, and it's very, very difficult to do that. And like I said, yourself, and me included, it's a journey that you go on. It's not, you don't start it one day and then it's finished. It's just constant. Every day you work on it, try and do a bit better, try and change a little bit, try and do that extra rep, try and put that extra squat in a bit deeper, whatever it may be. But it's just a journey. And I think, it's one of those things that maybe people are a bit scared to start, which is understandable.
It's completely understandable. Yeah.
Well, I mean, unless there was anything else apart from the questions that we've missed out on, because again, I know I've got one more section that I want to move on to, which is a quick fire round section, which is sort of like recap what we've talked about and some of the most commonly asked questions from riders in the, in your sort of sector, in your industry about health. So is there anything else that you'd want to mention before we move on to that?
I think we've covered most things, hopefully.
I think so. I think so. I'm sure this is it. Every time we do an episode, it's always like, right, we've got to do a part 2 because actually we've missed out on quite a bit of stuff that we wanted to talk about. But no, I think we've covered a lot. So yeah, like I said, I've got how many questions have I got? I've got 10 questions. Quick fire ones. If you say, Aaron, that isn't anything to do with what I do, just tell me and I'll shut up. I'll move on to the next one. And I know the first one says about something you said you don't like giving out. So I'm going to ask it anyway. You can tell me to shut up. If a rider can do only one exercise to improve their riding, what would you choose?
I won't give you an exercise. I'll give you a movement group.
Okay.
So hip mobility exercises, drills. That's probably where I would, if I had to pick one, that's where I would start because, a lot of you guys will struggle with basic movements like lunges, bridging, hip movements where you're pushing your hips back. A lot of you will have lower back pain, and that can often be down to immobility through the hips. Things like lower leg stability, being able to hold a 2-point seat, all of that starts with the foundation of hip mobility. So if I had to pick one hip mobility exercise, probably a 90-90. So you basically sit on the floor with your bum on the floor, feet out in front of you. It's really hard explaining exercises.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm imagining it.
And your knees up, and then keep your torso tall and your bum on the floor. Let your knees drop. So let your right knee drop to the right. Your left knee is going to drop to the right. And you should be able to quite easily get both knees to the floor whilst your bum stays on the floor. If you can't, then you definitely need to work on both internal and external rotation of the hip. But that's just a nice drill to start. It's really nice. Like if you do it, and
it feels nice.
When you go to the other side, challenge is staying on your bum. So you actually really move through the hip nice and slowly, but it's one of my probably favorite hip warm-ups that I always do before I train. It's a very good exercise to show you if you're a bit limited.
So bum on the floor, and then you sort of rotate both your knees to the left and then to the right, and they both should. Well, your left knee will probably hit the other one, and then the right knee should go on top like that.
There'll be more of a gap. So
so it'd be sort of like that.
So your feet are just directly under your knees to start with your bum on the ground, and then there'll be room that you take your left leg out. Think of letting the front leg go first. That's why it's called 90-90, because your legs will end up at a 90-degree angle to the hip, if that makes sense. So your inside leg will be behind you, also with the knee to the floor. But most people probably won't be able to get their knee to the floor, and do not force your knee to the floor. If you can't do it, work with your range of motion. Go as far as you can, and you should feel a bit of a stretch through the legs, the hips, maybe a bit of hamstrings and inner thighs, and then go the other way. And the more you do it, you will find that your mobility improves and it gets better and better.
So just repeat.
Yeah.
But gently.
Yeah, mobility just gently, 5 to 10 reps on each side, just really slowly, nice deep breaths. Hold it for as long as you want. If you're really mobile, I use it as a stretch. So lean over my outside leg and get a really nice stretch through my back and my glutes. Most riders always have sore bums. My bum's always sore from training and riding. So yeah, that's a really nice one to get the glutes a little bit looser.
Amazing. Well, actually, this probably follows on to from the first one. What's the most common fitness weakness you see in riders? But I think you've just answered that.
Common fitness weakness. Probably a lack of stamina, to be honest.
I thought you were going to say your hips. I thought you were going to say...
If I'm brutally honest, I'm thinking of going and spectating at a competition, or going and doing a fun ride, or going actually and even watching a lesson. My sister teaches quite a lot. Sometimes I watch lessons. People sort of to the end of the round or the lesson, out of breath, they're tired. And the thing that really, really annoys me is when you see somebody banging up and down on the horse's back because they're not fit enough, say towards the end of cross-country course or towards the end of a lesson. So that's a generic answer. Probably that lack of stamina and endurance. So yeah.
Do you know what? We've been sat here the whole time and we actually haven't even discussed how not being fit enough would impact your horse's health. That was one thing that I've not even realised, and that's also a massive part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Number 3 is riding and mucking out actually enough exercise, or do riders need more?
We covered this, so I'll just say no. You need more. Not exercise, training. Look at what you need.
What's the best exercise riders can do at home with no equipment? I think that's the hip one, right? I assume, or not? I keep going back to the hips. I'm answering these questions for you. I should just shut up.
No, I'll say a dead bug because, the hip drill was more of like a problem. So, a dead bug. It's one of your like best core movements you can possibly do. So, lie on your back on the floor, just your body weight. You don't need any kit. Lift your feet off the floor so your rib cage is down. Knee to your hip should be in a straight line, and then your knee to foot should be in a straight line. So again, your legs make a 90-degree position. Arms go up above your chest while you keep your back and your head on the floor, and you're going to take your left arm, right leg out at the same time. But you've got to make sure you keep your rib cage in contact with the floor. So that works the core really, really nicely. And it also gets our opposite limbs working together, which is super important because that's exactly what happens when we ride.
Wow. Okay. What's the most underrated muscle group for horse riders?
Well, that's a good question. Most underrated muscle group. Glutes, I'd probably say.
Yeah.
So the muscles on your bum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many people say core strength, core strength, core strength. And a lot of people are mindful of upper back strength as well. But think about where the powerhouse of the movement comes from when you ride, where you are sitting. Your glutes.
Fair play. And I would have said core as well, to be honest with you, if you would ask me that question. But
your glutes are part of your core. So anything mid-thigh on the front and the back of the body up to like just below your chest, that's all core. So again, like glutes are part of your core training.
And also if you can get that good, maybe that's why a lot of horse riders have such, shaped bottoms, It's one of them I should have really horse rided because I don't even have a bottom at all. It's flat as a pancake. If anyone only rides once or twice a week, what should they do off the horse to improve?
Yeah, like if you're only riding a couple of times a week, then your training is really, really important because it will maintain a much better base of like fitness and strength. So I'd probably say 2 to 3 strength. Like when I say strength and conditioning, it's either a strength session where you're focusing on like strength movements. It might have like a quick like 5-10 minutes of conditioning at the end where you're doing like a bit of core work and exercise that gets your heart rate up a bit. So focus on the strength mostly, a little bit conditioning. Probably try and add that in 3 times a week, and then maybe like 1 aerobic session, whether that's a run, might be a cycle, might be a swim. Just because if you're only riding twice a week, you're probably not getting that stamina challenge from anywhere else.
Next one is, what quick daily habit riders can add that will help their riding?
There's so many, but I guess you guys probably want a physical one. So warm up before you ride. Like really simple. Just it doesn't need to be basic. And again, this is something people are like, I can't do your warm-ups at the yard because I can't lie down. I would never obviously give a rider a warm-up lying down on the yard. Like I'd be happy to lie down on the yard if I'm honest. But I'm not expecting people to lie down. It's the same like when I give my guys warm-ups when they're out competing. It's just basic like 5 minutes, some arm circles, get your torso twisting, roll down, touch your toes, do some leg swings, do some hip circles, just literally 5 minutes before you get on to ride.
Again, makes sense. You want you'd warm up for any other sport, wouldn't you? But no, people just get on and they're away, aren't they? What's the biggest myth about rider fitness?
That you need to stand on a Bosu ball all the time. Any exercise you do needs to be on a Bosu ball. I hate them. They have their place. I did an ankle ligament injury myself 2 years ago, and it was part of my recovery. But as soon as I was done, like I think most riders that they're expensive. They're like they're probably even more now in this day and age. They used to be about 75 to 80 pounds.
Really?
They are a pretty useless bit of kit. And I know there's some trainers on here that coach riders that will argue with it, but yeah, on the whole, throw them in the bin.
And the last question is, what's one thing riders should stop doing immediately if they want to improve their riding?
Oh gosh.
So what should they take away?
What should you stop doing immediately if you want to improve your riding? Trying so hard, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like the more you try and make something happen, particularly when it comes to physical. And again, I think this is a good lesson you learn in training, because sometimes you go in and you try and do an exercise and you don't even feel tired. Like you think like, oh, I've had a great day. I feel really good. My body's buzzing. You go in and try and do something and you cannot do it. I've had that moment as well where like it's a physical limitation. Your body just won't play that day. Or it's also mental. This happened to me in the gym the other day. It was really embarrassing. And I was like trying to do something and I think I just was like completely overloaded from the day. My brain couldn't speak to my body and I couldn't do the movement. And I was like, this is really annoying. I know what I need to do, but I can't make it happen. And the more I tried to think about it, the more frustrated I would get. And I, was guilty of this when, we were doing like ponies and stuff. And it was high pressure. Like, every competition you went to, like we all knew, like you have to be selected to go, like, and I will admit that, like I wanted so badly to be on the team. Like I'd want everything to be perfect. And I try so hard. And 9 times out of 10, when we try so hard, it actually gets worse, if anything. So I think, stop trying so hard right now and just remember that like it's a process. Like one, bad lesson, one awful schooling session, it's not the end of the world. One bad gym session, I think remembering that, like think about everything we've spoken today. And then if your horse could speak, like he'd probably have a great podcast. Like what would he say about you? Or like, like the days, like what would he tell you to take away? Think about it from that point of view. But yeah, I think honestly, stop trying so hard. That would probably be the big thing.
Simple. And that's it. That's all the questions that I've got. Again, is there anybody that before we finish, is anybody you want to give a shout out to? Anybody you want to mention? Thank you to, or
I don't think so, but well, thank you to you for having me. I really, enjoyed coming on, and thank you for asking me to be a part of it because I think it's great with what you're doing with your page, and all of the podcast episodes before have been really, really cool. So yeah, it's been brilliant to get involved, and if anyone wants any demos of like any of the movements I've described today, I'm more than happy to share like any video demos because I know it's a little bit hard to picture exercises. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can check out my Instagram. It's just Katie Bleekman. I also have a Facebook page, Event Rider Fitness. And if anyone wants any more information on like what I do or how I coach, I've got a website as well, eventriderfitness.com.
But well, I'll link them all in the. If you send me them afterwards, I'll put them all in the description below, and everybody can get in contact with you a lot easier then. But clearly you've been doing it for years now, 6 years you said, right? And you even talking to you for a couple of hours, you've seemed to have gotten all this information and just made it simple, which is what is the hardest thing to do, and then people then could understand it, which is obviously really, really helpful for people that are wanting to get into it, break that barrier. So but yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for telling us about all your experiences and all your little tips and tricks as well. Hopefully they'll help a few people that are listening and get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone's got any questions or like, they want to learn more, because I know we've talked about it a lot and sometimes it can be a bit like overwhelming to take it all in. But yeah, like my inbox is always open if you've got questions. So feel free to reach out. But no, thank you for having me. It's been very fun talking through it all. And brilliant to be on the show. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.